Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. At the beginning, I swung my sword 1,000,000 times, and I shocked the whole school. Chapter 61. Just die like this. Gao Yuan stepped half of his foot into the abyss, and he didn't make any struggle anymore. Team leader. At this time, a figure suddenly rushed in front of him. Immediately afterwards, a huge collision sound exploded in his ears. Boom. Hu. In the darkness, Gao Yuan seemed to hear someone calling him. He slowly raised his head, his eyes regained some look. A figure stood in front of him and carried everything for him. Captain, Wu Yu yelled. He held up his shield, clenched his teeth and stood at the front. We never blamed you. You. Gao Yuan's heart beat violently. Captain, we haven't lost yet. Wu Yu supported the armored shield with both hands, and looked back at Gao Yuan with a smile. At this time, a spear flew through the air. Click. In front of everyone, Gao Yuan's throat choked up, and his pupils shrank suddenly. The spear pierced Wu Yu's right arm straight. Tick. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Blood immediately rolled to the ground. Ah! Wu Yu screamed, but he didn't take even half a step back. The bones hummed faintly in the body. The continuous collisions caused his internal organs to suffer a lot of trauma. But Wu Yu did not retreat. Swear to the death to defend the best and most gentle Captain Gao in the world. Click. This sentence seemed to touch Gao Yuan's heart again. Wu Yu let out a roar, his eyes filled with ferocious red blood. Ah! You bastards! Don't even think about hurting my captain. One tiny bit. At this moment, Wu Yu's teeth are cracked, and half of his teeth are about to be crushed by him. You, give it to me. Go away. A huge force burst out from his whole body, and he actually withstood the impact of more than a dozen believers. Wu Yu. Gao Yuan's lips trembled slightly, tears streaming down from the corners of his eyes. Why? No reason. Wu Yu struggled against the battle-scarred armored shield in front of him, helping my teammates resist all injuries. That's it. It's very burning. He stepped forward step by step with the shield on his back. So what if he is not good at attacking? Everyone in their presence is trying to radiate their own weak fire. A single spark can start a prairie fire. Besides, it wasn't what you said, the captain. Do I play a big role in the team? Now I know. Wu Yu panted heavily, but his voice was particularly firm. Cheer up. Captain. The best captain in the world. At the same time, Chen Haoshuan and Yang Qing broke free from the siege of other believers. Ice freezes the ground. Several ice cones shot out from Yang Qing's body, and the moment they touched the believers, silver-white ice flowers exploded in the air. The first wave of offensive was barely blocked. The four of them gathered together. Chen Haoshuan seized the gap in the opponent's attack, wrapped the blood hole in Wu Yu's left arm with a special bandage, and did a simple treatment. Finally, a pain reliever was injected. Xiao Wu, you did a good job. Chen Haoshuan patted Wu Yu's shoulder. Afterwards, he walked towards Gao Yuan, and with a punch, he lightly hit him on the chest. Captain, it's the alien species, the god religion, and the cold gods from that day that caused the current situation. Not you. This moment, it seemed like something was breaking inside him. Thanks. You're welcome. We are teammates who were born and died, and you are our most trusted captain. Next second, Chen Haoshuan's expression changed suddenly. He punched the air with both fists fiercely, and fought with the cultist who attacked suddenly. The latter let out a scream. Fist bones shattered. At this time, most of the confusion and doubt in Gao Yuan's eyes receded. Two javelins transformed from spiritual power pierced through the chest of the believer in an instant. There are no fewer than 100 believers. The situation still isn't getting any better. Time passed by every minute and every second. The physical strength of Gao Yuan and others is declining at an extremely fast speed. His ability is approaching the limit. Wu Yu's figure is at the forefront. For the sake of everyone, he has withstood an unknown number of attacks from the believers. Captain, these believers can't be killed. Blood was bleeding from the corner of Wu Yu's mouth. He kept coughing, but he still persisted. They have already killed an unknown number of cultists. Suddenly, there were sounds of shattering. Not good. Wu Yu seemed to have noticed something, turned around and yelled, Captain. You guys stand back. The words fell. The armor shield made of black iron was completely shattered. Wu Yu felt his whole body sink, and then spit out a large mouthful of blood. His awakening object was broken. Wu Yu. Yang Qing frowned, spread her hands and turned into an ice wall to barely resist part of the attack. Despite this, there were still dozens of believers who seized the opportunity and rushed to the back of the team. Desperate situation. Although Gao Yuan resisted desperately, there were too many opponents. No matter how strong he is only a third-level awakener. There will eventually be a time when mental energy is exhausted. Several stronger believers seemed to attack at the same time, just for the moment when the opponent's mental exhaustion attack was empty. It's over. Gao Yuan looked at the attack in front of him. He resolutely used his remaining mental strength to push Wu Yu and Chen Haoxuan away from him. And he himself was at the center of the attacks from the cultists. I am the captain. Gao Yuan breathed a long sigh of relief. If I die, I will die in front of you. Hiss. In a moment, a towering ice cube rose into the sky under his feet. The cold air suddenly swept through this space, and in just a moment, all the attackers and believers who had not yet arrived were frozen into ice. Caught up, caught up. Yang Qing had tears in her eyes, and her thin and slender body stood in front of Gao Yuan. She broke through. In this desperate situation, he broke through to the third level. Yes, she saved her captain. Xiao Qing. Gao Yuan's eyes were bleeding, and his vision fell into darkness again. Overusing his abilities, he fell into temporary blindness just like last time. It's okay, Captain, we won. Yang Qing smiled miserably. Click. There was another shattering sound. But this sound did not come from Gao Yuan's heart. But, PFF'd. Gao Yuan was inexplicably panicked, and he groped forward helplessly with both hands. What just happened? With his mental energy exhausted, he was unable to sense the things around him. Vice Captain Yang. Vice Captain Yang. The silence in his ears was terrifying at the moment. You beast, why aren't you dead yet? It was Wu Yu who was talking. What is he shouting about? Gao Yuan knelt on the ground. He didn't know what happened just now, but the anxiety in his heart became stronger and stronger. Zhao King. For a long time, a small voice sounded in his ear. I'm Captain Zhao King. Gao Yuan was completely panicked. He frantically scratched forward, as if to make sure of something. Captain, I will never stay up late again. Yang Qing's voice gradually weakened. She moved to Gao Yuan's side little by little, and then hugged him gently. But Gao Yuan only felt that something warm was soaking his chest. Zhao King, team leader. Her voice was stuck in her throat with blood, and she couldn't make out what she was saying. Although Gao Yuan couldn't see it, he could clearly feel the beating of Yang Qing's heart, which was slowly weakening. Until there was no sound at all. December 4, 2022, at 10:09 p.m. It's winter. The cold wind at night accompanied by snowflakes made people's noses and ears red. Street side. Yang Qing put her hands to her mouth and let out a warm breath. Gao Yuan carefully wrapped his wool scarf around the other party's neck. You wear so little in winter, and still drink. The voice was warm and angry, but extremely gentle. Hey, Captain Gao. You don't like me, do you? Yang Qing SBL*CKM* Ned with alcohol, her little face was flushed red from the cold. Lofty. Yang Qing. The two of them were silent. For a long time. How about, let's be together? Gao Yuan's heart felt like he was struck by lightning at this time. Zhao King. He roared heartbreakingly, but didn't get any response. Gao Yuan in the darkness, running forward like crazy, trying to get out of here. But no matter how hard he struggled, it was still to no avail. This darkness was like the other side between life and death, an unbridgeable gap between him and Yang Qing. In the end, it's better for me to be alone. If I die, I will die. I have no worries. The last thing I want is to make others worry. This is my life anyway, and I might die fighting alien species one day. It's really nice to be alone. He seemed to have returned to the scene when his master asked him this question. Are you sorry? In the darkness, a voice suddenly came. Regret. Gao Yuan looked dazed. He nodded blankly, tears of blood streaming down his face. Later, I regret it. Someone asked. It's a pity to be together and separate, or a pity to never be together. But at this moment, Gao Yuan felt that he was not even qualified to answer this question. He was afraid that someone would miss him and be sad and painful one day after his death. But now, But I have never seen him even for the last time. Gao Yuan knelt on the ground, feeling Yang Qing's body gradually become colder in his arms. You beast. Wu Yu's eyes were red, and he punched the cultist in the face with one punch after another. Asshole. You deserve to die. You go to hell. Chen Haoshuan raised his head and couldn't bear to watch what was happening in front of him. The believers were all wiped out. They won. It seems like he didn't win. Gao Yuan hugged Yang Qing's cold body, tears mixed with blood. He thought back to that night. If you don't avoid it, don't be timid. If you agree, how great would it be? I seem to become that useless burden again. In the dark, Gao Yuan stretched out his hands, trying to close the open door again. At this moment, an almost too familiar voice sounded from his ears. Little fatty. Master, I'm late. The moment I heard this sound, Gao Yuan seemed to have turned back into the fat man with a runny nose. Teacher, master. His lips trembled as he groped for a sound and looked around. With the sword in his hand, Hu Yuanfang felt distressed after seeing Gao Yuan's miserable appearance. It was I who killed Yang Qing. Gao Yuan was in tears, and he looked in Hu Yuanfang's direction. Master, what should I do? Hu Yuanfang didn't answer, but looked at the believers below who were frozen into ice sculptures, and looked up at the illusory figure in the sky. There was a surge of anger in his heart. He slowly walked to Gao Yuan's side, and the long sword seemed to have a divine nature, actively flying into the air and hovering quietly. Hu Yuanfang patted Gao Yuan's head lightly with his left hand. You are right. What's wrong is the religion, the gods, and the alien species. You've done a great job, get some rest. After Hu Yuanfang finished speaking, he suddenly caught the buzzing silver-white longsword with his left hand, and immediately stepped out, looking directly at the god in the air. Little fatty, let's talk about the future later. But now, let Master vent this anger for you. He hasn't drawn a sword in decades. Today, the long sword is unsheathed, and the sword's edge points to the gods. The words fell. Hu Yuanfang's body transformed into a silver sword shadow. Wherever you go, alien species, believers are all invincible. Among the ruins, Gao Yuan leaned in front of the broken stone wall. After feeling the long-lost sword cry, the tight shackles were completely shattered. At the same time, his eyes seemed to undergo some subtle changes at this moment. At this time, the western district of the city was now devastated. Blood spilled on the ground, making it a mess. Out of the dozen or so night watchmen who came to block it at first, there are less than 5 people left who can move. More than half of them died in battle, and those who survived by chance also fell into a severe coma. It can be said that the casualties were heavy. Boom. Among the ruins of the city tower in the distance, there was a loud bang. Yendelo's huge body roared, and he stabbed fiercely at the ruins with his sharp blade. A large amount of dust and smoke was suddenly rolled up. Bastard, you are crazy. In the ruins, Zhang Chengwen, with disheveled hair, was bleeding from his mouth, and his mental particles condensed dozens of defensive barriers before he could barely resist. Yandelo's eyes were like a pitch-black abyss, staring at Zhang Chengwen, who was hammered and struggling under him. That look was full of sarcasm. Click. The barriers gradually crumbled under the red spikes, piercing into Zhang Chengwen's flesh and blood bit by bit. What the hell are you? Zhang Chengwen felt the sharp blade piercing into his body, so he burst out with strong mental power again. Countless mental particles instantly turned into a huge palm to suppress downwards. Help! Help! The other side, the other 5th-rank deputy directors, who were panting, burst out with all their strength and attacked Yandaro's body. This is the first time for them to feel the strength of SS-level aliens. With his own efforts, he almost wiped out the high-level combat power of the entire Tian City branch. A deep sense of despair and powerlessness welled up in my heart. Back then, the Desoi, which was only an S rank, was about to destroy a city. What about this SS class now? If it is an ordinary person, they may run away, but now they are night watchmen. Well, the only answer, never retreat. Several tyrannical attacks landed. Yandelos finally had a reaction, and the spikes on his body began to shatter. Roar. With a roar, it retreated involuntarily. That is to seize this opportunity. Zhang Chengwen gritted his teeth, and controlled the mental power turned into the palm to press down hard. But the battle is not over. Panting, Zhang Chengwen quickly moved away from where he was. With their backs against Tian City, they already had the determination to die in their eyes. What the hell, is the SS-level alien species awesome? Zhang Chengwen's left hand was ruthless, and he snapped back the misplaced right hand. Deadly battle will never retreat. Fight to the death and never retreat. Fight to the death without retreating. Including Zhang Chengwen, a total of 6 awakened ones seemed to have made some kind of determination at this moment. Fight. He looked back at the position of Tian number 1 middle school. There are the lights of thousands of families that he wants to protect, and there is the whole world that belongs to him. Today, as a night watchman, but also as a father, he will not lose. Never lose. Damn, today is the most important day I care about in a year. Zhang Chengwen roared angrily. The next moment, the core of the awakened matter in his body, which was made up of spiritual particles, suddenly burned, emitting a dazzling golden light. Puff! A mouthful of blood spat out from Zhang Chengwen's mouth. With a determined gaze, he resolutely walked towards Yandaros, who was about to struggle to get up. Countless bright spiritual particles, exuding brilliant light at this moment, instantly turned into 2 golden wings on the back. 7th Order Awakener. Suddenly, everyone's momentum began to rise. As a night watchman, watch the night for the sky and protect the lights of thousands of families. Zhang Chengwen roared with blood, turned into a sharp arrow and shot out. When the night falls, we will burn ourselves up. To lead the lights of thousands of families behind you, walk out of the darkness. Greet the dawn. Quote, Tian number 1 middle school. The chant representing the end echoed quietly in everyone's ears. Lin Tian looked up. It's dark, as if the end really came. The dim light continued to swim above the black light curtain, turning into phantoms. At this moment, Blue Star seems to have become a battlefield for the gods to watch. The purse-like light group formed by the fire rose slowly in the air. With a deafening roar, it spread outward from the center of the light group. Lin Tian frowned. There is no sword in his hand, and the Xiaoyao sword intent wraps himself, like a sea needle, immovable under the power of the gods. Inside the shelter, everyone was stunned by this scene. Is that the legendary god? How does it feel like plankton? I'm about to suffocate. If this thing wants to destroy the world, who among us can stop it? It's over, Blue Star is about to be destroyed. Can that kind of thing really be defeated by humans? They were shocked by the presence of the gods, and felt for the first time that they would be so small from the bottom of their hearts. God, legendary creature. In their eyes, human beings are just dust that can be wiped out for thousands of miles with a snap of a finger. Can we really win? After witnessing the power of the gods, each and every student fell into confusion. Can win. At this time, in front of the shelter, the instructors said with firm eyes. They were seriously injured now, and they reluctantly came to the refuge after being persuaded by Lin Tian. Otherwise, even if it is the god, knowing that they are invincible, they will also fight to the death. Several night watchman instructors endured physical pain and stood straight with their backs. Facing the young man who was wearing a fiery red sweater and facing the god alone with a sword, his eyes were full of respect. Now this scene, isn't it more shocking than some gods in this world? Not enough to get their blood boiling. Playground. The black and red figure was condensed in the light cluster. The figure is ethereal, and the illusory tentacles are swaying in the air. He slowly opened his eyes. A black halo looms behind him. The holy and pure light shines on the earth. But it's just cold, without the slightest warmth. Along with those pupils, there is no emotion. As Uncle Zhang said at the time, he regards everything in the world as a humble dog. This is God. It's really in line with the ancient gods in my mind. Let's make do with it, and make up for it. At the same time, crowds of God believers began to gather at the feet of the god. They looked up devoutly at the lofty god in front of them. Kneeling on the ground involuntarily, shouting madly in his mouth. Great God, please descend to the gods to wash away the sins of this world. We are your fanatical followers, wipe out those ignorant and stupid ants. New world. In the near future, we will be greeted by a new world. The gods seemed to ignore the voices of the group of believers. He opened his eyes calmly and scanned the entire city of Tian. The majestic divine power enveloped the entire city in just an instant. At this time, whether it is a night watchman or a foreign species, the body couldn't help trembling. Dirty xenomorph. The god spoke lightly, the voice was not loud, but it penetrated everyone's hearts. In an instant, the black and red light wheel emits brilliance. The light no longer exudes holiness, but turns into flawless black. Under the sky and darkness, countless tentacles pierced through the clouds and attack the ground. But the target is not human beings. It's the group of aliens who lost their minds. After a few seconds, countless alien species were pinched in the air by him, and then turned into particles and dissipated in this world. Far away, Long Weo, who was still fighting bloody aliens, was dumbfounded. He watched the tentacles that looked like natural disasters pass by him, but ignored him, and then turned those alien species into dust. What happened? Long Weo looked a little surprised. The gods, aren't they evil? And why help them eliminate alien species? All kinds of doubts protruded in his heart. Assemble, he yelled towards the surrounding team members. They all stood where they were, safe and sound. He stared blankly at the alien species whose black tentacles swept across the entire Tian city. Captain, that thing, why did it help us? I don't think so. Long Weo pondered for a long time, and then said solemnly, it's just like what was recorded by the night watchman. The gods do not distinguish between good and evil. There is no emotion in their eyes. Maybe we and the alien species are actually moving ants in their eyes. Maybe, the smell from the alien species makes him feel disgusted. Never mind, do not care. Damn it, don't let me catch the chance, or I will kill you no matter what kind of god you are. Looking at the god in the air, Long Weo cursed. But at this moment, his face suddenly changed, and his whole body seemed to be strangled by something, struggling to lie on the ground. Until tens of seconds later, the feeling of death gradually disappeared. Ouch! Cough cough cough. Long Weo lay on the ground, his chest heaving violently. Team leader. Seeing this, the other team members were taken aback and rushed forward. I'm fine. He stretched out his hand to stop it, and then wanted to stand up, but found that his feet had no feeling at all. How is this going? At this time, not only Long Weo, but even other people's ears began to echo slowly at this moment. Believe in God, fear God, follow God. God is infinitely sublime. There are only small punishments for the ignorant, but that doesn't mean God will always tolerate you. Quote. What is that sound? So at this moment, people have such doubts in their hearts. Sotoxin. Above the sky, the god looked down at everything in the world, and said lightly, ants. Kneel down. As soon as the words came out, all night watchmen could not help but fall into self-doubt. The look in the eyes darkened quietly. Powerlessness and despair turned into a bottomless quagmire at this moment. Once you fall, you will completely lose yourself. And the god closed his eyes, seeming to enjoy everything now. But soon, his body moved slightly, and then he looked thousands of meters away. There, it appears to be an empty lot. There are thousands of trembling ants hiding below. Only on top of that, a young man was indifferent to this, and stood there quietly, his eyes facing him. Kneel down. Sortoxin spoke again. The mighty divine power slanted down. Hundreds of believers were still pious, but they were crushed to pieces by this divine power. He is indifferent. It's like wiping off a little dust. Along the way, God, so what? We are not afraid of him. His grandmas, yes, after this battle, I have to go back and show off to my wife. I kept it from her before, but now I have to let her know that his man is a hero. My son is just full moon this year. After this battle is over, I will retire and stay at home with my parents, wife and children. Several night watchmen bear the temptation of the gods. It can be next second. They turned into powder under the divine power. Before death, there are still beautiful fantasies about the future in my mind. Lin Tian looked at the tsunami-like divine power in front of him. Today, he is here. Kill God. In a moment, Lin Tian rose into the air. Xiaoyao Jianyu. Suddenly, when everyone saw this world-destroying divine power, the glimmer of hope that had just ignited in their eyes quickly faded away. It kept echoing in their minds. Despair, endless despair. People, it seems, really can't win against God. But at this moment, Lin Tian's figure rose from the big screen in front of everyone. Infinite sword intent swayed all over his body in the blink of an eye. The area with a radius of tens of miles was instantly covered by another tyrannical and terrifying will. Everyone was astonished, and found that the looming light and shadow turned out to be a sword. A sword standing in the sky. God. Lin Tian was shaken, but instead of retreating, he advanced. God, I will show you too. Instantly, the divine power capable of obliterating everything in the world collided ferociously with Lin Tian's free and unfettered sword domain. Boom! The huge explosion instantly spread throughout Tianan. The ground trembled under his feet, and the deep ravines shattered like spider webs. The two were relative, surging like a tsunami. The black radiant majesty was torn apart by the sword intent. But in the next second, that divine power made a comeback again and turned the sword intent into ashes. The aftermath alone wiped out half of Tian City to the ground. The 100-meter-tall building rose from the ground, and it was smashed into powder in an instant under the two shocking forces. Periphery. Thousands of desperate night watchmen regained some consciousness under the huge shock. No one knows what happened. I thought it would end in darkness. But now, it seemed that something pulled them all out of the quagmire. Long Leo stood on top of the ruins. He looked 1,000 meters away, and his eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Is that a person? In front of the gods. Man is unquestionably small, like dust. But now, under this divine power that almost made everyone despair, finally someone stood up. With a mortal body, he can stand shoulder to shoulder with a god. Lin Tian snorted. The crimson sweater on his upper body looked extremely dazzling against the sword intent. The huge sword standing in the sky and the earth cut a gap in the covering black curtain. The bright golden sun shines in the sky, shining brightly. Standing by the gods, there is a big dark sky. The place of mortals, the golden light is shining. This incomparably trembling scene caught everyone's eyes. Sword intent lingered all over Lin Tian's body. He said, stretching out a finger, pointing to the god far above. Looking directly into those haughty scarlet eyes, you. Immediately afterwards, Lin Tian suddenly pointed at the broken earth. Get off. The sound rolled, echoing over Tian like thunder. This is outrageous. This is Lin Tian. This is the real god. I declare, from now on, Lin Tian, you are my god. It's so handsome. FK him. Cut it off for that god with a fork. With the body of a mortal, he can shake the gods. Things that other people may not even dare to imagine on weekdays. Today, Lin Tian did it. He proved to everyone that God is not omnipotent. And humans can also defeat gods. This moment, for the first time, Sotoxin's emotionless eyes made waves. His nuclei-like eyes swept towards Lin Tian. This was the first time he took a human being so seriously. A dust that could easily be destroyed in the past. The blasphemer. Sotoxin withdrew his eyes, and the terrifying power burst out with a sudden red light. Die. Next second, with Lin Tian as the center, countless red pillars of taboo descended in the space of several miles in an instant. The red lightning roared ferociously. Clatter. It's raining. It was pouring rain, and the blanket was falling. But this rain, it is red. The rain of blood is often the prelude to the hymn of the end. The sky above Lin Tian. Just when the blood rain was about to cover up the last glow. He moved. Lin Tian once again condensed the sword intent all over his body. The vast sword intent is in the sword field, and its power is multiplying. The scarlet thunderbolt was wiped out in just a moment. Going up to the stone pillars engraved with ancient curse seals, white light flashed, and all of them collapsed. This moment, Swotoxin looked at Lin Tian with less contempt, but more curiosity. There was another turmoil in his heart. The opponent's strength was the strongest he felt after waking up. That look, that attitude. It seemed to remind him of the past in the ancient years. Pop. The space around Swotoxin suddenly distorted. The gnat shakes the tree. Trying to counter me. Wishful thinking. There was anger in the voice. God, angry. In a moment, the billowing black and red light turned into a spear, quietly floating beside him. A cold radiance radiated from the spear. There is no distinction between good and evil. This is the gun of order to which the gods belong. Under this gun, all living beings are ants. Ant, how dare you disobey God? Sotoxin stared at the human teenager in front of him. Rage, endless rage, suppressed the anger of countless years. He thought that he would have forgotten it long ago under the scouring of time. But now, this human attitude deeply angered him. Lin Tian chuckled. Disobedience. You may be mistaken. Say it. He slowly took down the long-lost wooden sword wrapped with wooden sticks behind his back. There are no fancy special effects and actions. Just like he swung his sword at first. Take it off the back end. The sword points to the gods. I'm only doing one thing from start to finish. Slay God. The last two words were lightly spit out from Lin Tian's mouth like an understatement. As soon as the words came out, silence, deathly silence. The whole space seemed to be frozen. Sotoxin's figure trembled, and then he actually laughed out loud. This sentence, how long has he not heard? How long has it been since he heard this sentence that made him extremely angry? Swotoxin was furious. Slay God. What do you use to chop? Take the wooden sword in your hand. Ants are ants after all. Suddenly, the spear mixed with scarlet lightning shot out. It is powerful enough to check and balance the power of the world, and it is so tyrannical that the earth begins to tremble violently. Seeing this, Lin Tian took a deep breath. He waved the wooden sword in his hand tentatively. It may not be enough to kill gods with this sword. Then, Lin Tian's body suddenly rose with boundless power. The direction of the heart is the point of his sword. Where people are, Xiaoyao Jianyu is there. This time, he didn't hold anything back. In the sword field, everything is for me. Lin Tian swung his wooden sword into the air, looked at the gods, and shouted loudly. Sword. In an instant, countless sword edges emerged out of thin air, and the Xiaoyao sword intent was like the surging river. Inexhaustible, inexhaustible. The vast sword intent gradually condensed, and then attached to the wooden sword. Next moment, Lin Tian swung the long sword in his hand. When this sword comes out, the world will be shocked. In the sword domain, he is Xiaoyao. God, he will be beheaded today. Sword 9, 6,000 miles. This sword is called Sword 9, 6,000 miles. Lin Tian's eyes seemed to have a touch of Zhonghu wind and frost. In an instant, all cards were played. Tao Tao's sword intent was powerfully integrated into this sword style, and his power was frightening. The wooden sword in Lin Tian's hand trembled. It fell with a split. Suddenly, a sword energy thousands of miles away hangs upside down at the edge of the sky, the darkness is swept away by the sword, and the sun shines down. The clouds shattered like a sting. Under the 9 heavens of the sky. The shady sky is divided into 2 parts. This is really spectacular. This sword rekindled the fire of hope in everyone's hearts. In Lin Tian's peerless sword, the scarlet spear was disintegrated into countless tiny pieces in just a moment. Click. The chains that imprisoned the world, together with the divine power that overlooks all living beings from the present world. They were chopped to pieces by Lin Tian together. The shady scenes recede and return to the clear sky. Look at the so-called high gods again. Swotoxin's figure was not in place, and he looked along the light red afterimage in the sky. The opponent has already appeared in the air thousands of meters away. Yes, even a god would have to avoid this sword. God, scared. This means that Lin Tian's sword is fully capable of beheading him. Even if you don't die, you will be seriously injured if you touch it. Even if it is him, the god above all things, it is no exception. This sword, how should I describe it? Who can tell me, what words should I use to describe this sword? FK. However, I am not educated, so I dare to go to the world. This is the limit of my culture, I will try my best. P.S. Please note, it's definitely not that the author can't describe it. Definitely not. Slay God. God is a fart. Kill him. Inside the shelter. Everyone was shocked by Lin Tian's sword. The sword intent soared into the air, soaring up 90,000 miles. This sword is enough to be recorded in the annals of Great Xia history. It can be called a peerless sword. As Lin Tian said. When this sword comes out, the world will be shocked. Kilometers away. Swotoxin's figure suddenly trembled, and several ethereal tentacles fell down. The pitch-black blood splattered, turning into crystals the moment it touched the air, and it was particularly dazzling under the sun. Everyone in Tian has noticed. God, hurt. The appearance of Lin Tian broke the world's perception of God time and time again. But only some kawaii-brained groups don't know. God, that's the blood of God. Bathing in the blood of God can give you a new life. Gods won't lose. All of this is God's forgiveness to those stupid people, it's a gift. It's all an illusion. Yes, it must be like this. This is the blood shed by the great god on his own initiative. Hundreds of crazy believers ran to the bottom of Swotoxin desperately. For any first-order awakened person, the kilometer distance can be reached in just 5 seconds. Their eyes reflect the afterglow bestowed by the blood. Beautiful. It is so beautiful. They cheer, they scramble. They spread their arms, closed their eyes and waited for this sacred ceremony with great reverence. You can sublimate by bathing in the blood of the gods. After a few seconds, Swotoxin's blood fell to the ground. The shouting and roaring of all the believers stopped abruptly. They sublimated, completely sublimated. Forehead. High EQ. You can sublimate by bathing in the blood of God. Low EQ. I was stoned to death. Famous painting. The Wise Christian. Yes, hundreds of God believers were smashed to death by the crystallization of Swotoxin's blood in the blink of an eye. Not a single one was left alive. Seeing this scene, Lin Tian's rising momentum couldn't help but pause for a moment before continuing to rise. This is the god. Ox. He was speechless. However, there seemed to be nothing wrong with what the group of believers said. It has indeed been sublimated. It's just that the location is wrong, and the coordinates may be wrong. What I went to was not the new world, but to face the little leather whip of the Buddha. Just these people. The Buddha can tie them to a cross and whip them back and forth with a mace for 30 years. A group of lackeys who devoid of humanity. Maybe they won't see the Buddha. Maybe I went to see my god's dead parents. Swotoxin was aware of everything that happened below, but he was indifferent to it, and he didn't even take a look at it. He looked at Lin Tian, and there seemed to be endless anger hidden in his calm eyes. At this moment, Swotoxin was no longer depressed. Ants, trying to kill gods is the most stupid fantasy of your life. Still bragging, Lin Tian picked out his ears. It's true that gods are a race, but could the things inside be the same as the big black jellyfish in front of me? Heads can fall off and blood can bleed, but you just have to show off. Ant, how many times can you strike with that sword? Swotoxin's voice was full of sarcasm. The gap between ants and gods is like the ravine in the abyss. I am a god, and my power is endless. That human boy's sword made him lose all faith as a god. This feeling, the familiar, shames him. Swotoxin's severed tentacles quickly recovered in the blink of an eye, and then grew again. This time, the scarlet crystals emitting black light inside his body gradually trembled. Immediately afterwards, a chaotic energy spread out from his body. Different from the scarlet lightning and the tyrannical power just now. This vast black mist is more dangerous than the previous two. Even Lin Tian had to pay attention at this moment. He centered on himself and quickly released his Xiaoyao sword domain. The black fog of chaos seems to swallow everything, turning everything it sees and touches into nothingness, returning to chaos. Xiaoyao sword domain collided with it. In just an instant, Lin Tian felt an unprecedented pressure. He already had some guesses in his mind. What a big jellyfish. Could it be that he has lost face because of himself? In order to prevent things from leaking, I finally chose the wisest option. Kill everyone in Tian City. Sounds ridiculous. But for a god with such a flawed mind, he would definitely do this. Click. Within half a minute of being exposed to the chaotic black mist, cracks appeared on the surface of the translucent realm. Leaked. Lin Tian was shocked. Just like the big black jellyfish said. He really couldn't strike out with a second sword of equal power in a short period of time. If only. It's long overdue. But that doesn't mean he can't swing a sword. This sword just has limitations. If you want to swing it, you have to prepare in advance, which is more troublesome. Lin Tian raised the long sword. A half circle of the silver moon swayed in the sky. The swordsmanship of time. This sword is still his trump card. At this time, Swotoxin suddenly bloomed with red light, and the ethereal tentacles instantly broke through the barrier and faced Lin Tian's sword. The tyrannical force made Lin Tian unable to stop and took a few steps back before looking to stop. Tisk. Lin Tian frowned. He was so shocked that the tiger's mouth was slightly cracked, and blood flowed down the hilt to the tip of the sword. Soon, he swung his sword again. But it was blocked by the chaotic black mist. Chaos God Realm. Scarlet light flashed in Swotoxin's eyes, and in an instant, a powerful domain barrier enveloped Lin Tian. A tearing pain came from the bottom of my heart. Even if Lin Tian releases Xiaoyao sword domain to resist. But the black mist still took the opportunity to affect him. Not good. Lin Tian was suppressed. What should we do? If Lin Tian loses, we will really have no hope. Just asking, can we lend the light to Lin Tian, like what Tiga did in the last episode? Question mark quote. I'm sick, keep worrying, keep working hard, and ignore me. Lin Tian's eyes were bloodshot, and the sword blade struck this realm, but it didn't move an inch. The black mist began to continuously impact his mind, thereby affecting his strength. God, he couldn't help but sneer, can there be such a dirty move? Ants. Sotoxin ignored it. He only wants the arrogant human being in front of him to die. And it is the most painful death. The next moment. From the other direction, a sword intent like a long river of time poured down from the sky. This sword, it's not much weaker than Lin Tian's world-shattering sword. Each has his own merits. The former is high-spirited and carefree. The latter is more sophisticated, simple in vicissitudes of life, but with enough killing intent to kill gods. Click. The Chaos God realm suddenly shattered into large pieces under this sword. Sotoxin stared at the sky. I see. An old man in black robe walked down carelessly, holding a long sword. That sword edge flows through the years. The great Sha sword maniac. Hu Yuanfang. Here comes another person. Who is that person? He actually smashed the realm of the gods with one sword. No, I haven't heard of it. No, what do you ask us to do, who we have heard of before? You're right, but the most important thing is that the old man is holding a sword in his left hand. Tian number 1 middle and lower. In the huge refuge, thousands of students were shocked by the sudden arrival of the old man. Just hold the sword in your left hand. The sword that was cut out still has such shocking power. What an international joke. Let alone holding a sword, they may not even be able to write with a pen. What kind of perseverance is this? Some people also speculated that the old man might be Lin Tian's master, or someone who had been friends with Wanganian. Several wounded night watchman instructors looked at each other. At the same time, a guess that shocked them extremely came to mind. Could it be that one? Forced to retire due to a broken arm, the Night Watch Division was the first and only one to kill the S-level alien species, Desoi. Great Shah's first sword in 100 years. Sword idiot, Hu Yuanfang. This shocked me for 100 years. A night watchman instructor sighed. Regardless of the wound on his shoulder, he watched the scene of the two swords confronting the gods in the air. Heaven will never die, I am Daxia. I didn't expect that even this senior was born. Even though the gods are very strong. But they are people of great Shah. Maybe he will die from time and old age, but he will definitely not fall under this insignificant natural disaster. There is still hope for this battle. Big Shah, there is still hope. A few people murmured among themselves, with the faith and obsession that the night watchman would stick to the death in their eyes, they stared at the two with nobility and respect. The two of them used two swords to cut through the quagmire of despair that trapped thousands of people. This battle, the night watchman wins. Great Summer will win. Above the sky, Hu Yuanfang held the sword in his left hand, and the black robe was moving in the air with no wind, his eyes were full of hesitation. Looking at his left hand, he looked at the direction where Gao Yuan was when he came. This sword, as the beginning of him picking up the sword. He is very satisfied. Lin Tian, I'm late. Hu Yuanfang is over 80 years old, but his body is still strong, and every step seems to smash the sky. This sword is called No Light. The former Jian Kai was radiant and full of vigor. Every sword he strikes is enough to overwhelm the heroes and stand on the top of the mountain. But now, even if he picked up the long sword in his hand again. But the price is the former self. Although he is now a sword fanatic, the sword in his hand is quite different from the sword he used to be. Hu Yuanfang looked down at his silver sword. After years of scouring, the light has long been obscured. But this also gave his sword another artistic conception. I just realized it, and I am in a hurry. P.S. Zanyu, Stat Track, No Lightsaber Intent Factory New. Don't take it seriously. That's right. Hu Yuanfang's comprehension in the way of swords even surprised Qiangu. No lightsaber intent. Hu Yuanfang flicked his long sword lightly. God. It's just mediocre. The other side. Lin Tian coughed twice, looking towards Hu Yuanfang in the direction of the sword intent. Is this sword just comprehended? If it weren't for giving Da Sha leeway now, the occasion would be very serious. He really gave Hu Yuanfang a thumbs up. And say it again. Your uncle is indeed your uncle. Forced must be the most ruthless. The sword intent must have just been comprehended. Suddenly, the scarlet aura swept over again. The realm of the gods is broken, and even the gods cannot release it continuously in a short period of time. Swotoxin looked coldly at the old man who was pacing, his teeth itching with hatred in his heart. Humanity. It's human again. It's obviously an inevitable end. Why do you have to struggle to the death? The gods are resurrected and the abyss appears. This is the end of time. P.S. Focus. A friendly reminder from Byakai. Even if he died here, human beings, animals, everything still cannot escape the fate of being liquidated. All that is done now is just useless and in vain. Click. The crystal nucleus in Swotoxin's body began to tremble due to extreme anger. Those unsightly memories of the past flooded into his mind. This moment. God, he's in a hurry. Ants. Swotoxin's furious voice shook the sky, and he roared, defeating the gods. Idiots. It's no different from being sent to death. This moment. Swotoxin fell into chaotic madness. His eyes were scarlet and radiant, and the steaming black mist diffused from the light wheel behind him. In the dark sky, chaos reappears. Blood rained down and thunder rolled. The apocalyptic atmosphere is heightened to the extreme. Lin Tian's back was stretched very, very long by the afterglow of the rain of blood. The atmosphere is here. He is holding a wooden sword, and the Xiaoyao sword is attached to the sword and rotates. Today I will not kill the gods. It seems a little unreasonable. Hu Yuanfang nodded, and he looked at the vast black mist in a low voice. Who will die? Are you talking about me? Sadly, I'm not. I'm just here to avenge my good disciple. So today, you have to die. The disciples whom he had protected for half his life were being wounded one after another today. This tone. Master helped him out. The words fell. The two figures quickly disappeared from the spot. On both sides of the black mist, two completely different sword intents whizzed over. Jian Qi's dullness. The joy of hanging pens. The two of them slashed out their most powerful swords at the same time. A dark river of time slowly extended from the boundless to the foot of Hu Yuanfang. Look at Lin Tian again. Xiaoyao's sword intention is condensed into a great success. The blade has reached 100 meters. Within the mind. The canoe on which the old man Xiaoyao in Zhongzong was originally fishing shattered. Call. A shadow suddenly appeared behind Lin Tian. This sword. The name is Xiaoyao. In an instant. The whale-like cry shook from the 9 heavens. Immediately spread throughout Daxia. The artistic conception of clouds and mist seems to cover the sky at a height of 10,000 meters. Kunpeng rises with the wind in one day and soars 90,000 miles away. The giant thing that stretched thousands of miles was suspended in the air. Under it, God, it's not worth mentioning. Swotoxin's heart trembled, and his eyes stared at the unknown giant in the sky in disbelief. The kind of fear that radiates from the bottom of my heart. Let him fall apart completely. Humiliation, serious injury, trampling, miserably defeated. All kinds of things. The memories that have been forgotten due to the years are completely emerging at this moment. No, you are. No, you are not. Leave me alone. No, don't hit me. I surrender. They're all dead. No, this is the end of the era. Eternal night era. Why are there still ants that can hinder me? No, I am a god. I am the master of all things. He roared desperately. Yes, God, crazy. No one knows what caused him to look like this. They just know. Daxia has been around for thousands of years. Man, behead the gods. 100 years of history of the Night Watch Division. 10 years ago, the gods first came to battle with the Night Watchmen. A few awakened ones took action, at the cost of heavy casualties, but the result was inconclusive. From then on, the gods became a nightmare in Daxia's eyes. God is mentioned every time. People will fear, despair, and run away desperately. But it is the same as just mentioned. As a person of great Sha, he may die due to time, but he will never fall under the so-called natural disaster. 10 years later, on June 1, 2023, at 6:32 p.m. the first god was beheaded. This is a historic moment. It is worth remembering by all. Swotoxin's figure gradually dissipated, and the constantly rotating crystal nucleus in his body quietly shattered, turning into wisps of dust in the air, drifting with the wind. God, dead. This is the Night Watchman, and also the first god to be beheaded in the history of Daxia. The blood rain gradually stopped. The thunder and lightning seemed to be afraid of something, and quickly retreated. The golden setting sun that belongs to the dusk is reflected in this post-war devastated land. Lin Tian held up the wooden sword in his hand. The crimson sweater looks extra dazzling under the afterglow. God, lost. He won. Man wins. Da Sha won. Hu Yuanfang held the sword in his left hand, but he took the initiative to back away from the afterglow, and the black cloth seemed to take the initiative to hide his figure. Da Sha is still the Da Sha. It's just that Jian Kai has quietly changed under the scouring of the years. This is a new era. Hu Yuanfang shook his head with a smile, and did not delay any longer, turned around and left in the direction he had just come. He was anxious to see his apprentice. My eyes are bleeding. How much does that hurt? How much you hurt, how much Master's heart hurts. Don't be afraid. Master is here, although it is stricter on weekdays. But the apprentice has something to do, so he, the Master, will be appointed first. That god is an example. Lin Tian looked at the crimson crystals that remained on the ground like crystal shards. This is a god broken into pieces. At the same time, the god believers who survived by luck looked at the gradually disappearing shadow. The faith in my heart collapsed at this moment. God, dead. No, it must not be like this. A great god cannot fail. It must be an illusion. Yes, it must be an illusion. This must be a prank by the gods. Gods are omnipotent. Gods cannot be defeated. That's right. That's not a god. It's definitely not a god that will fail. Gods are immortal. Gods will appear again soon, and then the real new world will be. No, you're wrong. That's the cannon fodder sent by the great god, just to fool those idiots. Ha 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 ha. It must be so. Periphery. The night watchmen who came to arrest the remnants of the divine sect seemed to be losing their minds when they saw each one of them. Are they, all right? Wrong. They are not human at all. The gods have such a group of younger brothers who know their own CPU. There really is his blessing. ... Inside the shelter. Everyone cheers loudly at this moment. Win. We won. God, damn reptile. You are going to die. Long live Da Sha. Long live the hero. Long live Lin Tian. Please. That sword just now is super handsome. I am asterisk. I apologize for everything I said to classmate Lin Tian before. He is a hero who silently guards the city. Several night watchman instructors grinned with difficulty. They finally won. God, natural disasters cannot overwhelm Daxia. Because there is always a group of people. They will stand in front of tens of millions of people to guard the billions of lights behind them. The night watchmen. Everyone rushed out of the shelter without stopping. They shouted for Lin Tian, shouted for the nameless old man, and shouted for all the night watchmen who fought to the end for this catastrophe and even gave their lives. At this moment, they are heroes admired by all people. It's Tian, the savior of Daxia. Everyone rushed to the ruins after the catastrophe, and bathed in the dusk with open arms. The long-lost warmth, the long-lost peace. Seeing this scene, Lin Tian laughed wearily. He stood on the roof of the school. This is where he usually wields his sword. He saw Zhang Ling. And Zhang Ling didn't bathe in the dusk, but kept looking around. His worried eyes seemed to be looking for something. Suddenly, she noticed Lin Tian standing on the roof. But the other party left. He left quickly, leaving only an afterimage in place. Kilometers away, Lin Tian stood in a dark and narrow alley. There is no sunshine here. It was damp and cold. He just stood there quietly, looking at a figure in front of him with both eyes. The man's clothes were torn, and the exposed skin was covered with dense cracks. Blood flowed out along the cracks, and a hideous blood hole was stabbed in the abdomen. Such injuries, even breathing is extremely difficult now. But the other party has come here all the time. Zhang Chengwen. Lin Tian's lips trembled slightly. He looked at the blood man standing in front of him, and mixed emotions rushed into his heart for a moment. Zhang. Uncle Zhang. Since being taken out of the orphanage, Uncle Wang and Uncle Zhang raised him. But in front of you, Win. Zhang Chengwen interrupted what Lin Tian was about to say just now. he looked at the reflected dusk, grinned and said, "You also won, right?" For a long time, Lin Tian nodded lightly. "We won, the night watchman won, Da Sha won, and we won, Uncle Zhang. Gods are not incapable of being killed. Uncle Zhang, we did it and killed the gods." Hearing this, Zhang Chengwen laughed miserably. No matter how hard he was to hold on, his feet went limp and he fell to the ground again, but Lin Tian caught him and gently lowered him to the ground. Zhang Chengwen leaned against the wall, and he habitually touched the cigarettes in his pocket. "But I found that I seem to have no strength. Oops, almost forgot. Linger won't let him smoke. I quit smoking 2 years ago." Zhang Chengwen closed his eyes and smiled again. "You Uncle Zhang. I won too." "I know, Uncle Zhang." Lin Tian had already sensed it. In the middle of his battle with the gods, he suddenly felt that the powerful alien aura in the west of the city suddenly disappeared. "Little Tian, you really killed God." Zhang Chengwen sighed. "That day, when you said you wanted to protect Lao Wang and me, I thought you were still young. I feel that at your age, to bear such a heavy responsibility, would it be too tiring? Lao Wang and I raised you up. What I hope most is to see you and Linger grow up happily. I don't want you to embark on this road of no return. Even if you can become heroes and be admired by tens of thousands of people." Zhang Chengwen coughed twice, with a hint of shame on his face. "It's a shame. It's really a shame. Uncle Zhang, senior sword idiot Hu Yuanfang, the god who slashed with me." Lin Tian, who was listening silently, spoke at this time. "Senior Hu is here too." Zhang Chengwen thought for a moment, then laughed out in relief. "He is the pride of Great Sha." But from the beginning to the end, it was the second place that few people paid attention to. Among his contemporaries, he dominated the crowd, but was overshadowed by Wang Yangshi. Kindergarten, he received 1 piece of pocket money a day, and Wang Yangshi received 1 piece and 5. In primary school, he got 99 and Wang Yangshi got 100. In junior high school, he liked the deskmate, but the other party had a crush on Wang Yangshi. Until high school, they entered the night watch department by accident and became night watchmen. Until now, he has never been stronger than Wang Yangshi once. His life is amazing. Similarly, his life is also tragic. This moment, Zhang Chengwen no longer cared so much, the second is the second. "At least this time, old Wang, you are no better than me." As he spoke, he looked at Lin Tian and emphasized. "Xiaotian, you, Uncle Zhang, are not weak. The one you killed was only an SS-level alien, and it is also the first time in the history of the Night Watch Division." There were some tears in Lin Tian's eyes, but he kept silent, just nodding his head constantly. Quiet, he only felt that the surroundings were as silent as stagnant water. For a long time, Zhang Chengwen said weakly, "Xiaotian, hold this. Tell Linger again, Dad is sorry for her. It's time to watch her grow up and see her put on a wedding dress and walk into the palace." With bloody hands he pulled a tape from his pocket. "Then I found a clean place and wiped off the blood stains with difficulty. Thank you, little day." As Zhang Chengwen spoke, his breath became weaker and weaker. "Today is Linger's birthday. It's Uncle Zhang. The most important day for me." Inside the alley, Lin Tian picked up Zhang Chengwen, who was seriously injured and dying, and kept repeating, "Uncle Zhang, who is fine, will be fine for sure." Talking, he jumped to the roof at an extremely fast speed, constantly searching for the night watchman's rescue team. Zhang Chengwen forced his eyes to open, and smiled wearily. "You and Lao Wang have the same temper. It's hopeless. Your Uncle Yang's awakening is exhausted. Even if you were rescued, you can only be an ordinary person in this life. Uncle Zhang, you should keep your breath." Lin Tian emphasized. "You know, Linger cannot live without you, just like the West cannot live without Jerusalem. Let's change the angle again. If you are gone, what will Linger do? What if it is a deep blow, and if you fail to learn, with which yellow-haired?" "Okay." Zhang Chengwen coughed twice, then suddenly sighed. "I'll leave it to you, Xiaotian." "Uncle Zhang, I'm a little tired. First, sleep meeting. Tie-in number 1 middle school." When everyone cheered heartily above the ruins, only Zhang Ling kept looking at the door worriedly. At this time, a familiar figure appeared from outside the school gate. Lin Tian was so low-key that he didn't even attract any attention, and quietly appeared beside Zhang Ling. "Linger." Zhong Ling stood there looking at the young man in front of him as if touched. All of a sudden, all kinds of mixed emotions emerged. With tears in his eyes, he said with a smile, "Welcome back, hero." Lin Tian didn't speak. He just took out the necklace made of red crystals from his pocket heavily. It was the shattered crystal nucleus in the body of the god Wenhe and Hu Yuanfang beheaded him. The divine power and divinity contained in it completely dissipated immediately after Swotoxin's death. Take it as a souvenir, a small gift. He put this necklace made of God's core on the other party's fair neck. Well, it looks pretty. Zhong Ling stood there blankly. When she came back to her senses, the necklace with red crystals was already on her neck. Under the light of dusk, the red crystals reflect the light and come alive. Zhong Ling was a little taken aback, as if he had noticed something wrong with the atmosphere. My heart skipped a beat. Lin Tian, what happened? She knows Lin Tian's character well. The two killed the gods. If nothing happened, it would be impossible to show such an attitude. Lin Tian looked at Zhong Ling in front of him, feeling distressed for a moment. He thought for a while, then took out the tape that Zhang Chengwen had prepared in advance from his pocket. Linger, your father is also a hero. Zhong Ling looked at the tape that was slowly handed to him. The whole person froze in place as if struck by lightning. His lips trembled slightly, but he couldn't make any sound for a while. The tape was still stained with blood that hadn't been wiped clean. She didn't know how long she stood there. Zhong Ling looked at the tape wrapped in pink brocade, but he didn't feel like crying at all. In other words, there is no extra emotion. With blank eyes, he took the tape from Lin Tian like a machine. She heard, when people feel extremely sad, they don't cry out loud, but remain silent, a silence without any color. Lin Tian, thank you. Zhong Ling pushed her hair behind her ears, and stood under the dusk and smiled at Lin Tian, thank you very much. Actually, it's okay, it's really okay. Zhong Ling interrupted, holding the delicate tape tightly with both hands. When Lin Tian took out this gift, she already understood everything. But she didn't want to affect others with her emotions. Lin Tian, I think I'm going home. Don't think too much. Lin Tian reassured, Uncle Zhang is just tired. He asked me to say sorry to you. I may not be able to accompany you today. I know. Zhong Ling smiled forcefully and suppressed her sadness. I'm leaving now. There should be many things here that I can't do without you, so I'll go back first. After saying that, she walked out of number 1 middle school with a calm head. Lin Tian looked at the other person's back, and finally just shook his head and said no more. Zhong Ling returned to the community where he lived alone. The streets were in a mess, and many night watchmen were cleaning up the bodies of dead aliens. She clutched the gift in her hand and walked up the stairs quickly. In front of the door. At this moment, Zhong Ling just wanted to go home and cover herself in bed. Just think about nothing and stay quietly. Click. The door opens, but Zhong Ling was stunned. Immediately afterwards, waves of sadness surged out like a tide. She couldn't hold it back anymore, and big tears fell down her cheeks. She stood there, silently in pain. Her fair little face was wet with tears, and her distressed look was endearing. Zhong Ling looked at the table in front of him. Linger, your father and I have been so busy lately that I feel dizzy. What do you want to eat recently? Well, let me think about it. Fish-flavored shredded pork, sliced pork belly, ground 3 delicacies, stir-fried beef with green onions, kung pao chicken. I want to eat them all, but I still have to go to school, and Celie still needs you. Just wait until you have time. No problem, Dad will keep it all in mind. Not bad, just a little cold. She stared blankly at the table full of food and the piece of strawberry cake placed in the center. Yes, today is my birthday. For a moment, every detail of Zhang Chengwen appeared in front of Zhong Ling's eyes. When I first entered elementary school, because her friend robbed her of a lollipop, she cried and ran to Lin Tian for help. As a result, she lost another lollipop. It was 12 o'clock that evening. Zhang Chengwen knocked on Uncle Wang's door, holding a belt in his hand and glaring at Lin Tian fiercely. In junior high school, whenever he saw her getting very close to any boy, even just saying a word, he would become extremely worried, and one day he even spent a lot of money to hire a detective. After being discovered, she remembered that she seemed very angry and said to Zhang Chengwen, I will never pay attention to you in this life. Although it was just a threat, it made her old father, who loved his daughter so much, feel like he had lost his soul for more than 10 days. Zhongling looked next to the cake. There are some old tapes there. I heard it was left behind by her mother. This type of cassette tape is very rare, so you need to find someone to order it, which is very troublesome. She slowly put the tape into the recorder. Then, the play button was pressed. Hulala, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. It was her father's voice. Although he was a little tone deaf, Zhongling felt very warm at the moment. Happy birthday to my Linger. Happy 18th birthday. Always love you, Dad. A month later, under the full maintenance of the Night Watch Division, Tian City has almost restored the order it should have. The collapsed building has now been rebuilt. At this moment, the street has returned to its former bustle, and the number of pedestrians has gradually increased. They had smiles on their faces, but they still couldn't forget the experience of that day in their hearts. That day, aliens and gods brought natural disasters to Daxia. Countless human beings have fallen into endless despair for this. Fortunately, a group of deadly forward heroes stood in front of thousands of people. They successfully protected the Wanjia lights behind them. That day, everyone who survived the catastrophe celebrated this rare joy together. They raised their arms high and shouted excitedly. Cheers to Lin Tian. Cheers to the Night Watch. Cheers to those heroes who fought to the end. Until the sky is a little fish belly white. The night disperses. Let's welcome the dawn together. That moment, all the night watchmen watched the dawn rise together. A sense of mission and honor arise spontaneously. This is the biggest reward for night watchmen. The next day, Tian Night Watch Division Branch. Ding dong. In the cool corridor, Lin Tian was carrying the fruit basket, and looked up at the house number on it. Waited for a while. The door opened slowly, and then a pair of small resentful eyes peeped out from the crack of the door. What are you doing here? Zhongling held the door firmly. No matter how Lin Tian pulls, he just won't let him in. Hey, Linger. Lin Tian clasped his hands together and said with an apologetic smile, let me in. I will ignore you for the rest of my life. Zhongling snorted, but the door he was holding on was loosened a lot. Didn't I tell you that at the time? Just sleep for a while, I didn't say anything else. Lin Tian stroked the back of his head and spoke innocently. Go away, I don't want to talk to you in this life. Zhongling gave him a hard look, and stepped on Lin Tian's foot hard along the crack of the door. After she finished, she let out a long sigh of relief, turned around and let go of the door. Come in. Okay. Lin Tian smiled and rushed into the room quickly. In the ward, the warm sunlight shines down the glass on a lily on the windowsill. Sitting in front of the hospital bed, Zhongling continued to carefully peel the apples with a knife. When a thin man saw Lin Tian coming, he smiled. Hey, did you bring anything? I'm your future son-in-law, can I not bring anything? Lin Tian put the fruit in his hand on another bed, and looked up at the middle-aged man on the hospital bed. Right, Uncle Zhong, you kid. Zhong Chengwen smiled, and joked, did you float away? That's not it. Lin Tian rubbed his nose and smiled, Uncle Zhong, I think now I can hit you 200. It's really floating. Zhong Chengwen shook his head helplessly. Just today, Uncle Zhong, I will whip you with a belt, do you dare to fight back? Lin Tian, hiss. It makes sense. I really don't dare. Lin Tian answered honestly. That's enough. After Zhong Chengwen finished speaking, he changed the subject immediately, and his face became more solemn. He looked at Lin Tian, and said seriously, now let's talk about the business. Business. Lin Tian changed his mind and said, what about your retirement? In addition to this, Zhong Chengwen continued, Old Wang called me to tell me some things. Uncle Wang, yes. Zhong Chengwen nodded, he told me about it. Lin Tian seemed to be thinking of something, and suddenly asked, Uncle Wang came over a few days ago. Hear, hear. Zhong Chengwen clenched his fist slightly, thought for a while, and then said, he didn't come. Quote. Isn't he the speaker? Naturally, he has more things to deal with, so he didn't come. Told me on the phone. Is that so? Lin Tian looked a little disappointed. Then Uncle Zhong, go ahead and talk about things. Don't interrupt, I'll finish in one breath. Okay. P.S. Don't worry, everyone, we will enter the memory stage next, and start to answer your doubts. On the day of the Battle of the Gods, Tian City. 8 o'clock in the evening. Lin Tian successfully found the most elite medical team in the Night Watch division. But at this time, Zhang Chengwen had already fallen into a coma, and his life and death were only on the line, precarious. At this time, Lin Tian had an idea, cleared his throat, and immediately said to Zhang Chengwen, "Zheng Sei, ahem, Uncle Zhang, you can go at ease, don't worry about Wang Mao. You can leave Ling to me at ease." As soon as these words came out, a miracle emerged. The electrocardiograph, which was almost flattened in a straight line, suddenly stirred up after hearing this sentence. Yes, saved Zhang Chengwen. It is a heavy father's love. After several days of rescue operations, although Zhang Chengwen's life was saved, he became an ordinary person forever. That battle, all the deputy directors of the branch died in battle, and only 3 survived. In order to win, Zhang Chengwen forcibly promoted himself to the 7th level. The price is the complete depletion of awakened objects, and for this reason, the identity of the awakened person is lost. P.S. Fragmentation of awakened objects can be recovered, but it takes a long time. Depletion cannot be recovered. It's almost the same as in fantasy, where the meridians are destroyed, which is still irreversible. About 5 days later, the night watchman discovered a divine church underground in Tian City. At the same time, those innocent ordinary people who were sacrificed for the revival of the gods in the deep pit were also discovered. On that day, the whole city observed a moment of silence. The memory is over, and the following content covers what Zhang Chengwen wants to say to the protagonist. Time: 10 days from the battle between gods. The imperial capital, the headquarters of the Night Watch division. Sitting in the office, Wang Yangshi suddenly gained a lot of momentum. He frowned and kept looking at the documents in his hands. Day of recovery. The gods are present in the 3 areas of Tian, the imperial capital and the demon capital. The 3 gods were accompanied by a swarm of alien species, many of which had never been observed, and most of them were above S rank. This is undoubtedly a disaster for Daxia. Although desperate, the night watchmen stationed there rose up to fight. That day, countless night watchmen shouted precepts, and then willingly died. I would rather die than retreat and defend to the death. At last, although Daxia won, the process was not so beautiful. The reality is cruel. Not everyone will be shrouded in a halo, so they will win the battle. That divine battle in the magical capital. People lose. The 7th level awakened person stationed there and one of the 3 chief speakers of the Night Watch division, Lu Zhenlong, died in the battle. The gods did not choose to slaughter other humans, but left directly after annihilating most of the alien species. Battle of the Imperial Capital Gods. Wang Yangshi teamed up with the Director General and another speaker to fight against the resurrected god. The whole process was almost a crushing one. But at this moment, the god in the demon city suddenly appeared. Suddenly, the situation reversed. At the critical moment, Wang Yangshi used a special forbidden item as a supplement to forcefully become the first 8th level awakened person in the history of the Night Watch department. As the gun moved along the line, it sounded like a dragon roaring. The gilt spear used 1-on-2, combined with several 6th level and 7th level awakeners, to finally kill the 2 gods. Thereafter, the Night Watch division headquarters continuously dispatches high-level night watchmen to various areas of Daxia to eliminate the remaining alien species. Think here. Suddenly, there was a knock on the office door. Enter. Wang Yangshi spoke calmly. Soon, a middle-aged man walked in outside. Director of the Night Patrol Department, Huang Yunfei. Director. Wang Yangshi stood up, took out a cigarette from his pocket and handed it to him as usual. Here is one. I'm so worried, I won't smoke anymore. Huang Yunfei waved his hand and then said, You know about Zhang Chengwen, right? I know. Wang Yangshi sighed, there's nothing going on there. Senior Hu, the swordsman, is in charge. And my nephew. It's probably safer there than in the imperial capital. Huang Yunfei pondered for a while, then murmured, That's true. I came today just to tell you something about your nephew. Huang Yunfei continued, he is now a celebrity in the Night Watch division, a monster who killed gods at the age of 18. Just tell me if you have anything to say. Wang Yangshi sat on the chair. You don't want Xiaotian to go to the youth training camp to polish the talents of this generation. Almost. Huang Yunfei nodded. The gods have recovered. Although they will not appear again in the short term, disasters like that day will definitely not happen just once. The night watchman cannot be disconnected. The older generation like you and I are still standing, especially you. As he said that, he suddenly paused and said no more. If Daxia wants to survive the disasters ahead, I'm afraid it won't be enough for us old guys alone. I know. Wang Yangshi smacked his lips. How powerful is your position as Director General? Why don't you go by yourself? How should I go? Huang Yunfei rolled his eyes at him. Then Lin Tian is your nephew. He is arrogant at the age of 18. What if he refuses when I go? Now Lin Tian's strength is at the top of the entire Night Watch division. Apart from the aspect of family affection, who else can control him if there is a real disturbance? To be honest, now he can even wander around in Daxia without any scruples. What's the threat? No threat. Before, in order to take into account the existence of the divine religion, he specially asked him to block Lin Tian's information to prevent it from leaking out. Now, pass it on. The faster the transmission, the better. It's just right to inspire and boost the morale of the younger generation. As for theistic religion, are they worthy? He has already killed a god, so what danger can there be? After thinking for a while, Wang Yangshi lit a cigarette, then nodded. I see. But, you know, my nephew is a genius. You can't go there empty-handed, right? Hello, dear passengers, this train has arrived at the terminal station Muzhou City. Please prepare your belongings in advance. The handsome young man in casual clothes yawned lazily and got off a high-speed train. He was pulling the luggage with his right hand, as if he was out on vacation. Black beach shorts with thin short sleeves, and sunglasses over the eyes. Under the blue sky, there is a vast ocean. Ah, the taste of freedom. Lin Tian slightly pulled off his sunglasses with one finger, looked up at the scorching sun above his head. That's right, this is life. Bell. At this time, the phone rang unexpectedly. He took out his cell phone from his trouser pocket and quickly connected it. Oh my god, are you there yet? On the other end of the phone, Wang Yangshi asked in a normal tone. Just got off the high-speed train. Lin Tian replied, and then sighed. This place has a nice view, suitable for vacation. Of course, the night watchman may not be able to do other things, but with Boy Huang around, he is definitely good at picking a place. Wang Yangshi praised, but immediately he found himself led astray by this kid. After coughing twice, he quickly got back to the topic. Ahem, cough, be more serious. Uncle Wang, I've always been serious. Okay. Wait until you get to the place. Wang Yangshi suddenly paused as he spoke. Forget it, just be an idler, see who is too crazy, go up and FK him, keep your sense of proportion and don't get crippled. Don't worry, Uncle Wang. Lin Tian waved his hand. I can't be an instructor and an instructor, but I can still be an auditor. That's fine. Wang Yangshi grinned. This kid was brought up by him alone, and his personality has nothing to do with him, but it can only be said to be exactly the same. Well, never mind. Nothing should happen. Boy Huang spent a lot of money to please you this time. Wang Yangshi warned. Don't have a psychological burden. If you suffer, no one can suffer yourself. Just take it as a vacation. I know, Uncle Wang. Lin Tian pulled the suitcase and walked towards the exit along the escalator. I won't say anything else, or I'll hate my own ink marks. If you have to go through the security check later, you can just reveal your identity. There are people in charge outside, so be careful. The two said a few more words, then hung up the phone. Security checkpoint. Sir, please put the suitcase in the check-in belt and stand on it. The man in overalls held the detector in his hand and smiled at Lin Tian. Ah, wait a moment. Lin Tian followed what Uncle Wang said, and directly took out his ID card with a black border. The security inspectors were still somewhat puzzled by Lin Tian's actions. But seeing the other party take out a black ID card, his eyes suddenly straightened, and then he saluted Lin Tian respectfully. Please. After going through security, Lin Tian couldn't help sighing. Since the Battle of Gods more than a month ago, the identity of the Night Watchman has officially entered the recognition of everyone in Daxia. And the ID card with the black border is the symbol of the identity of the Night Watchman. With this certificate, as long as it is in the territory of Daxia, no matter where it is, it can enjoy the highest level of treatment and the admiration of everyone. For example, Just now, it is one of the privileges. Because many night watchmen carry weapons and forbidden items on their bodies most of the time in order to deal with emergencies. So, go to the exit. Soon, a middle-aged man in charge of the board found Lin Tian on his own initiative. Hello, is this Mr. Lin? Lin Tian glanced at the middle-aged man, nodded and said, it's me. Long admiration, long admiration. The middle-aged man shook Lin Tian's hand, and took out a similar black ID card from his chest. Let me introduce you formally. I'm Lu Jiwei, one of the leaders of the Night Watch Youth Training Camp. Hello. Lin Tian nodded again and again. Comrade Lu, then we are going to. Let's take you to the youth training camp first to find out the way. With that said, Lu Jiwei came to the side of the road and pulled a dark gray off-road vehicle. Sit in the car. Lu Jiwei began to explain some of the most basic things in the youth training camp to Lin Tian. I have already learned about it from Speaker Wang. According to your current situation, Mr. Lin, although you have entered the youth training camp as a student, you must be clear about the main things to do. You don't need to participate in the training of the students, but I recommend you to listen to some lectures, which can make you understand the abyss and the gods better. Okay. Lin Tian nodded. He didn't have much opinion on these. It's also good to listen to the class. There may be some things in it that were not mentioned in Uncle Yang's document. Just to expand your knowledge. If you know yourself and the enemy, you can fight 100 battles without danger. Anyway, the job arranged for him at the special training camp was quite leisurely. Off-road vehicles drive along the coastal road. Muzhou is a city near the sea. It is located on the southern border of Daxia, and it is also one of the least harmed areas on the day of the Battle of the Gods. And here is called the Oriental Little Maldives. Beach volleyball, cold drinks, showers. Less comma. Just in my spare time at work. Hiss. Simply enjoy. Comma. An hour later, youth training camp. Lin Tian. Looking at the building environment in front of me, which is comparable to a black prison, it occupies a large area. And there are many thorns. Yes, the entire special training camp was surrounded by dense silver iron nets. In order to prevent people from climbing, circles of forbidden level spikes were thoughtfully tied on it. Point 6. Lin Tian froze in place, staring blankly at everything in front of him. My beach, ocean, seagull, beauty, volleyball, not even the sun can come in. This place is surrounded by mountains, compared with just now. What kind of place is it? Why do you feel like you have been cheated? Mr. Lin, Lu Jiwei called him, and then opened the iron mesh gate several meters high in front of him. The iron gate had several scratches on the muddy ground. He glanced at Lin Tian and smiled elegantly. Please come in. Lin Tian. The corner of Lin Tian's mouth twitched, and he dragged his luggage into the youth training camp. The wind was blowing, and the rustling sunlight cast the shadow of the iron net on the ground. Boom. The gate is closed. July 3, 2023. My family, I'm on vacation today. Everything is fine here. Briefly describe it. High emotional intelligence. Close to nature, prevent heatstroke, closed high-intensity training. Low emotional intelligence. Pure prison style. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 71. Followed Lu Jiwei around the youth training camp. It's time to say it or not. Although the length is about the same as that of a black prison, in fact, it is. It covers a large area, with daily necessities stores, teaching buildings, pension runway, and various forbidden equipment used for training in the building, etc. Mr. Lin, if you are familiar with it, I will take you to the dormitory first. Ah, yes, go into the dormitory. The environment inside the building is relatively clean. The only negative comment is that the male and female dormitory buildings are separated by thousands of miles, and fingerprint and facial recognition functions are even installed for this purpose. The kind that can only pass one person at a time. Hiss. It seems that the fun of the campus period has been vaguely lost. Never mind. It's not a school anyway. Lin Tian's dormitory is arranged in 000, which is the first room on the first floor. The treatment is good. Complete facilities, single room, and separate bathroom. Arrive. Lu Jiwei simply entered Lin Tian's fingerprints and facial information, and respectfully said, well, Mr. Lin, in fact, students who come here generally have a curfew. Unless they are training, they are not allowed to enter the dormitory after 11 o'clock. Except you. It doesn't matter. Lin Tian waved his hand with a look of indifference. Whether there is a curfew or not, it doesn't matter to him. After a brief separation with Lu Jiwei, Lin Tian also moved the luggage into the dormitory. He opened the black suitcase, and there were some clean clothes in it, as well as the commission given to him by the night watchman. Among them, 30 bottles of premium nutrient solution. There is a price but no market, and it is only available within the Night Watch division, and only for Third Order Awakeners and above. A piece signed by the chief of the Night Watch division. Well, this one is the most useless. Lin Tian just glanced at it, then casually put it aside. It's even uglier than what Uncle Wang wrote. A high-level forbidden item that can accumulate spiritual power is called the Yunshin bracelet. According to Uncle Wang, those who wear this bracelet can be passionate for 7 days and 7 nights without sleep, and their spirits will be greatly improved. To put it simply, the speed of consumption is not as fast as the recovery speed. As soon as one side consumes a little energy, the other side will be fully recovered. Hiss. Looking at the bracelet, Lin Tian suddenly had a bold idea in his mind. Think for a while, he finally decided to put the bracelet away. Can you do without sleep? If a person does not sleep, he has no soul. Finally, the bottom of the suitcase. It is a broken forbidden object that looks like a sword but is not a sword. It looks like an iron mace, but it has a pitch-black blade, and the blade is also grooved with black thorns of different sizes. Just this thing that looks like scrap copper and iron, maybe no one will pick him up after throwing him outside. Yes, that's right, it is a special forbidden item. Among them, the energy and blood of the user can be consumed to release the black energy enough to cut off the mountain. It is said that the night watchman found it in a treasure chest on the 6th floor of the abyss a few years ago, and killed an A-level alien species during the period. To say how precious special forbidden items are. Turning the entire Night Watch division upside down, after 100 years, only found more than 50 special grade forbidden items. Needless to say the power contained in it. Only the awakened ones above the 5th level have the ability to use it. As for why it breaks. The corner of Lin Tian's mouth twitched. 18 days ago, Tian City. Have you received anything? On the phone, Wang Yangshi asked. While answering the phone call, Lin Tian took a huge sealed package from a heavily armed black truck while a group of people were stunned. I have received it, but what is it? He looked at the package in front of him suspiciously. It's just a gift, but how about letting so many 3rd and 4th tier night watchmen deliver it in person? It's an exaggeration. Wait until you get home. Only then did Wang Yangshi say, you should open it first and have a look. Open the package. After Lin Tian saw all kinds of strange forbidden objects inside, he asked in doubt, are these forbidden objects? Yes, it was given by the night watchman. I don't really need these forbidden items, why don't you mail them back to Uncle Wang? Lin Tian scratched his head. In fact, he does not rely on forbidden objects to fight. There are systematic reasons. It only needs to constantly swing the sword, and it can completely fill the vacancy without forbidden objects. Ahem, I personally ordered these for you, Uncle Wang. Looking at the inexplicably received 100W in the mobile phone, Lin Tian seemed to have his own thoughts in his heart, so he asked, Uncle Wang, what does the secretary want from me? A few minutes later, Lin Tian, who understood the general idea, nodded, that is to say, Silly wants me to go to the youth training camp, to be an auditor. That's pretty much what it means. Wang Yangshi continued. Silly knows about your situation. After all, at your age and with the strength of Zanshin, Silly is a little timid. I want you to help, but I don't dare to be too harsh. But if you agree, it's actually very simple to do. Although you entered the youth training camp as a student, you are different from them. You don't have to be restricted, you can move freely, and you don't need to train every day. If you feel bored, you can also hang up a job and find something to do. Real. Upon hearing this, Lin Tian immediately became interested. Can anything be fine? It's about the same. Silly currently has a free-range attitude towards you. As long as you agree to go to the youth training camp, basically all the requirements can be met. Wang Yangshi added, Uncle Zhang and I used to be instructors in the youth training camp before. Although it is troublesome, it is very enjoyable. Furthermore, coaching is actually very good. Instructor, coaching. Lin Tian thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, forget it, I don't have experience teaching others. As for coaching, I'm actually not very good at it. I think so. This answer was actually within Wang Yangshi's expectation. After all, when Lin Tian told him that he believed in becoming a night watchman, he was to become the world's sword bearer. This kind of person is not suitable to be an instructor. Think about it, don't rush to answer. That. Lin Tian rubbed the back of his head, can I be a guard in the youth training camp? Wang Yangshi. What? Doorman. Hearing this request, Wang Yangshi almost spit out water. Unexpected. This was so unexpected. Sure. Sure and sure, Lin Tian said solemnly. The old man retired as a guard at the age of 60, and I became a guard at the age of 18, and I was still the guard of the Night Watch Youth Training Camp. This wave directly super doubles, saving 50 years of detours. Wang Yangshi. He was speechless. At such a young age, he already had such lofty ambitions. There was a long silence. He said slowly, I'll make the decision for you, that's fine. Thank you, Uncle Wang. Just take what the company gives you, and cash, and take care of yourself alone. Wang Yangshi's voice suddenly became delicate. Don't worry, Uncle Wang. Lin Tian bowed, but just after he finished speaking, he thought of something, when are you coming back? For a long time, Wang Yangshi's voice sounded from the other end of the phone. The speaker died in the battle in the Devil's capital, and I have a lot of things to deal with here. His tone sank, and he smiled happily. Didn't Uncle Wang agree to have a good year together this year? All right. Lin Tian didn't think much about it either. After hanging up the phone, he quickly noticed a forbidden item that looked like a long sword wrapped in the box. Special forbidden item. After seeing the introduction about this forbidden item, Lin Tian couldn't help sighing. It can actually release black sword energy that can corrode or even cause hallucinations. No wonder it is a special forbidden object. He touched his chin, picked up the forbidden object and gestured a few times in his hand. Immediately afterwards, a bold and wonderfully curious idea sprouted in his mind. Is this thing hard, or is it my hard? Why don't you give it a try? Afterwards, Lin Tian, adhering to the idea of experimenting to obtain true knowledge, promptly took out his. Then slash upwards. Click. Broken. Lin Tian. Ye semicolon. FK. It's broken. I just want to see whether this thing is hard or his wooden sword is harder. Who would have thought that this thing could be so brittle? Just touch it and it breaks. It's over. This is a super forbidden item. There may not be many rare items in the entire Night Watch department. It was less than 2 minutes after it was placed in his hand. What the heck, it broke. Black sword forbidden object. Hey, thank you. Hiss. Lin Tian took a deep breath, looked around vigilantly, and after confirming that no one else had noticed, he quietly stuffed this special forbidden item into the suitcase. Take it with you when the time comes. In case there is a sudden appearance of a different species. He should go to fight against it as a matter of course. Finally, it is said that this thing was accidentally damaged during the battle. Hey, I'm such a clever little ghost. The next day. Today is the opening day of the youth training camp. Early in the morning, Lu Jiwei led several instructors out of the youth training camp. To put it bluntly, Silly is responsible for these future pillars of the country and must ensure their safety. Actually, it's such a shitty place, you can't find it if you don't pick it up. On the bus, dozens of young teenagers and girls sat on the seats. They are the students of this youth training camp, and they are also the leaders of the younger generation of night watchmen. There are in the first order, there are in the second order, and there are even a few in the third order. Lu Jiwei stood in front of the car, like a sales guide, constantly explaining the basic rules of the youth training camp to these newcomers. Hello, I am one of the leaders of this youth training camp, Lu Jiwei. He opened his mouth loudly and glanced at everyone in the car. I know. At this time, a curly-haired boy with dyed yellow hair waved his hands impatiently. What's the use of talking so much? When will the youth training camp arrive? It's been more than half an hour. When the conversation was interrupted, Lu Jiwei was not angry, but just smiled and said, Don't worry, the journey will take about 10 minutes. During this period, you can get to know each other, because in the next 2 months, you will be comrades in arms, classmates, and partners. Lu Jiwei talked eloquently, and suddenly his eyes narrowed, full of meaning. It is also an opponent who competes with each other. After finishing speaking, Lu Jiwei clapped his hands, then sat on the chair in the front row and stopped talking. At the same time, the yellow-haired curly-haired boy just stood up abruptly, looked at everyone, and said calmly, "My name is Song Lei, and I am a night watchman in Tingyuan City, a third-order awakener. I don't like to team up with other people. If I have a mission in the future, I just hope it doesn't hold me back." Song Lei's expression was haughty, and his tone was very flat, as if he didn't pay attention to the people around him. Seeing this scene, Lu Jiwei just smiled and didn't speak. Silently opened the list of students. Song Lei's name was quickly found among the ranks of third-tier students. On the day of the Battle of the Gods, I killed several C-level alien species, and forcibly killed a B-level alien species when I was on the verge of death, and never retreated. Lu Jiwei nodded, and secretly said in his heart, "It's a bit bloody, but the foundation is not bad. It's just a little too arrogant. I often act alone and have conflicts with my teammates. It's a typical prickly head." But Lu Jiwei was not troubled by it. The original intention of the establishment of Youth Training Cloud is to let these young people who think they are geniuses recognize themselves. Even madness and arrogance must have a sense of proportion. Otherwise, in the future battles with alien species and gods, the only one who suffers will be himself. Of course, except for the invincible. For example, the one who is currently in the youth training camp. Look at the rear again. Song Lei's speech successfully put him in the spotlight. Who do you look down on? It's as if someone is not a third-order awakener. On the seat next to him, another student snorted coldly, "Yun Jie, night watchman of Qingtian City, third-level awakener. Mu Shui, night watchman of Konglian City, third-order awakener." For a while, there were dozens of people on the bus. As long as they are the students of the third-order awakened ones, they all took the initiative to stand up at this moment and introduced their identities to everyone. At this age, you are a level 3 awakened. There is no doubt that they are geniuses who are far ahead of other night watchmen of their generation. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, at the end, an extremely weird laugh sounded. Everyone was startled and looked back one after another. "I see." A teenager dressed in all black grinned, "What a bunch of ignorant kids." He covered his face with his hands, and put his head down in a very middle school posture. "Yi Xiaoyuan, from the extremely glorious and glorious Laojiang City. Although I am also a third-level awakened person." Yi Xiaoyuan deliberately pulled his voice long, with a contemptuous smile on the corner of his mouth, "But you people are not worth mentioning in my eyes. So, speaking of this," he spread his hands and sighed helplessly, "so, in my eyes, everyone here is rubbish." Hiss. As soon as these words came out, even Song Lei couldn't help but look behind him. "FK, who the hell is this? Talking so wildly. So you are strong." Ahead, Song Lei was the first to refuse. "Do you dare to challenge me one-on-one?" "Hey, yo, why are you so anxious?" Yi Xiaoyuan curled his lips and said angrily. "What the hell? All right." Lu Jiwei stood up at this time and separated the two of them. "It's full of gunpowder, not bad, not bad. But, now we're on a car, a bus can't resist a fight. You have to wait until you enter the youth training camp before playing. There is a special venue inside." The voice was calm, but it exuded an aura of majesty. Song Lei snorted and sat back on the chair. "These young people." Lu Jiwei sighed. "Everyone is really energetic. I just don't know if it will be like this after entering the youth training camp." Yi Xiaoyuan hummed a tune and sat down on the chair. At this time, from the corner of his eye, he suddenly noticed that there seemed to be another person in the corner of the car. The other person wears glasses and has been silent since the introduction. His presence is very low. "Hey, why don't you speak?" Yi Xiaoyuan stepped forward and took the initiative to strike up a conversation. "Where are you from?" The man seemed to hear someone talking to him, his body trembled, and he whispered back, just like you." "Hey, I'm a fellow countryman." When Yi Xiaoyuan heard this, he immediately became happy. "What is your name? Why haven't I looked at you before?" My name is Baila." "What?" Yi Xiaoyuan scratched his head. "What are you breaking up for?" "It's Baila." The young man corrected stammeringly. Ah, it's Bila. I'll call you Xiao Bai from now on. Yi Xiaoyuan nodded. Since you are a fellow countryman, I will protect you in the youth training camp from now on. Okay. Bila lowered his head, then, thank you. Night Patrol Youth Training Camp. When everyone got out of the car, they were stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. It was almost the same as Lin Tian's reaction. Where is this? What do you call this, a youth training camp? Hey, the surname is Liu. Song Lei pointed to the front and asked, are you sure you're not mistaken? This place, can people live in it? Why not? Lu Jiwei looked relaxed. There is already a student staying here for one night before you, so don't worry. You will spend the next 2 months here. After saying that, he walked into the camp first. The other students complained, but thinking of their current status, they gritted their teeth and followed. Just when passing the gate, a voice sounded in the small room next to it. Well, please show me your student certificate. The other students looked at each other, looked at the young man in front of them who was about the same age as them, and asked, who are you? Just an ordinary doorman. The doorman. All the students looked at each other twice, expressing their doubts. There are guards in the youth academy. Are you afraid of the food delivery? It's not right. There are still takeaways in this shitty place. The one surnamed Liu, is he the student you mentioned who stayed here for one night? Song Lei pointed to Lin Tian and asked aloud. Lu Jiwei turned his head around, paused the moment he saw Lin Tian, thought for a while before saying, take him as an auditor, he's here to work as a doorman part-time. I rub it. What the hell is a part-time job? He asked you to show it, just take it out. The student's certificate has been sent to you before. He glanced at Lin Tian who was sitting in the guard room. Speaker Wang called him and told him about this before. It means that the other party is not the person in charge, the coach, but wants to be the gatekeeper. For reasons of identity, coupled with Lin Tian's own special circumstances. It's not a big deal anyway, so I agreed. He actually knows it too. Si Li asked someone like Lin Tian, who was already capable of beheading gods, to come over and polish this group of students. In addition, it is also to guard against special circumstances. Lin Tian looked at the people in front of him, and then took out a machine similar to a credit card. Please show me your student certificate. Everyone is still a little puzzled. What is this? It's not that coming to the youth training camp is to hone one's own strength. How can I still work part-time? Just as he was thinking, the young man named Bila walked out of the crowd timidly, lowered his head and submitted his proof obediently. Here you are. After receiving the proof, Lin Tian didn't blot out any ink, and flicked the other party's proof on the instrument. Beep. The green light goes off. You can go in. Come on, next one. Seeing that someone had already entered, the others didn't delay any longer, and took out their own student certificates and handed them in. When it was Yi Xiaoyuan's turn, when the certificate in his hand was about to be handed over to Lin Tian, he suddenly stopped, and immediately leaned into Lin Tian's ear, curiously said, Hey brother, do you have any background? If you can work as a guard in this place, then Liu responsibility seems to have a lot of control over you. Lin Tian pointed to himself, I have no background. There are 3 relatives in my family, a high school student, an ordinary person who is almost disabled, and an overtime uncle who often doesn't go home. It shouldn't be. Yi Xiaoyuan scratched his head, and handed in the proof while talking to himself. Then he also entered the youth training camp. Wait until the last person goes in. Lin Tian suddenly felt a sense of accomplishment that his mission had been accomplished. He stretched his waist, turned and returned to his exclusive guard room. Small but complete. TV, Wi-Fi, everything. Lin Tian poked his head out, looked at the group of high-spirited teenagers who entered the youth training camp, and couldn't help sighing, oh, it's nice to be young. At this time, Wang Yangxi's phone call came. Pick up the phone and connect again. Hello, Uncle Wang. Lin Tian lay on the bed and said to himself. Oh my god, are the students here? On the other end of the phone, Wang Yangxi asked. It's already here. Manager Liu took them to the dormitory. It's fine when we arrive. Wang Yangxi nodded, then changed the subject and asked, actually, there is one more thing I didn't tell you. What's up? What do you think of those students? I think. Lin Tian thought for a while, and said seriously, I think it's okay, 2 eyes, 1 nose and 1 mouth, quite normal. Quote. Ahem, it's strength. Wang Yangshi choked and added. In terms of strength, it's very strong. Lin Tian nodded approvingly. There are more than a dozen third-level ones, although there are not many, it's just a feeling. What does it feel like? Why do you think they are more powerful than me? Lin Tian was puzzled. Isn't my 18-year-old doorman more famous than them? But why do I feel that all of them are so awesome? Normal. Wang Yangshi nodded predictably and continued. This is actually what Seely wants you to help with. Teach them not to show off. Quote. No. Wang Yangshi shook his head. Those who can come to the youth training camp are actually considered the elite of this generation of night watchmen. So, what Huang Shaozi wants you to do this time is to suppress their spirit. No problem. Lin Tian agreed directly, and then said, then I will stand up and say that I will beat them all one by one, and then cut them down with one sword. That should be enough. This is one method. Wang Yangshi nodded and said calmly, but if they really do this, they will probably withdraw from the camp tomorrow. Isn't this noisy? If he really did this, those who had previously claimed to be invincible of their generation would have to doubt their lives on the spot. Maybe it will lead to depression again. In the middle of the night, when no one was around, he strangled himself to death with a small rope. He might as well just die, there's no point in living. Right, Lin Tian did not refute. Uncle Wang, tell me. Come, Uncle Wang, let's talk to you. A smile appeared on Wang Yangshi's lips. You can just take a look at it normally. Some students feel crazy, or are so arrogant that they think they have beaten all the invincible students of their generation. And pinch, then the point came. You go up and beat him up in the middle of the night when no one is around, just don't beat him to death. Lin Tian, what? As expected of you, Uncle Wang. This thing is really not something that ordinary people can think of. But is this thing useful? Don't worry, it will definitely work. Wang Yangshi's face revealed full of confidence. Hit him once, and if you feel that he hasn't restrained himself, then beat him a second time until he restrains himself. After all, they probably don't know you or Lin Tian yet. They only heard your name but never met you. They will deal with you a few times in private so that they can remember it for a long time. Okay. Lin Tian hung up the phone. That works. Not just beating them openly, but beating them when no one is around. He was sure. That's when it happened. Within a month, the entire youth training camp was buzzing about it. All the rules have been discussed. In the youth training camp, the tiger must be denned and the dragon must be coiled. No one will object to you being a genius, but if you try to show off, you will be beaten. Think of this. Lin Tian only reacted belatedly. Is this guy a doorman? Are you sure he's not a gangster? Although it's a bit evil. But he likes it. Just do it. He took out the phone number he had just saved yesterday and dialed Director Liu directly. Hello. Brother Liu. I'm arranging dormitories for these students, what can I do? Just now, Speaker Wang and I collectively conspired about the growth of these students. How do you say it? Liu Jiwen asked. All of these students look cheerful. Everything is ready. I need a urea bag. Liu Jiwei. Afternoon. Outside the youth training camp, the sun bathes on the golden sandy beach. Countless people are enjoying themselves, looking at the beautiful scenery in front of them. Comfortable. It's so comfortable. However, in the youth training camp, on the wet and muddy ground, all the students stood on the playground with big eyes and small eyes. It was windy. They suddenly felt like idiots who had been coaxed into isolation. The dense forest and the surrounding mountains seemed to block all the sunlight. Can't get any light at all. It's like being isolated from the world. After confirming the dormitory to live in, they were notified by the instructor, and then they came here to wait. After waiting, half an hour passed. FK, can this still come? Song Lei smacked his lips, his tone slightly irritable. He glanced back and forth at the surrounding environment, feeling extremely depressed. What I know is to come to the youth training camp to hone my strength. Those who didn't know thought he was a fugitive and was arrested and sent to prison. Yo, are you anxious after waiting for so long? Yi Xiaoyuan stood next to Song Lei, with a twisted mouth, and said in a strange way, with this kind of heart, why do you still want to be a night watchman? Or just follow the part-time job just now, and find a guard to lie on the bed and watch My Little Pony. The two stood side by side. It's in the dark, it's fate, it's the narrow road of the enemy. When Song Lei heard this, burst out on his forehead. Is this kid a slob? It's so embarrassing to talk. You're looking for trouble, aren't you? Song Lei just wanted to reach out and grab the other party's collar, but after thinking about it, he stretched it back, and cursed from the air. What the hell are you mean? I'll sew your mouth shut. Look, I'm in a hurry. Yi Xiaoyuan was unhurried, curled his lips and said, sometimes I find reasons from myself, so why don't I talk about others, why do I talk about you? Crunching. Song Lei's face was so gloomy that water was about to drip out, and his fists made a crisp sound as he clenched hard. From the time these two things got off the car, there was almost no time to stop. Noisy when walking, even noisy when choosing a dormitory. I don't know if it was intentional, but the youth training camp actually assigned the two of them to the same dormitory. Then, everyone understands everything, and because of the question of who lives in the upper and lower bunks, I started to scold, so that I could be thrown out of the iron frame bed. I did a rough calculation. In less than 3 hours, the two of them quarreled a total of 16 times and had about 6 fights, 68% of which included relatives. People who have come all the way are basically used to it. Some people were kind enough to persuade them before, but as the number of times increased, they gradually stopped caring about it. Let's make a noise. It just added a little fun for them in this boring youth training camp. At this time, the long-awaited instructor finally appeared in everyone's eyes. Coming. In the crowd, some students shouted. Not far away, a middle-aged man with a rather fierce appearance walked in front of everyone. His skin was dark, and there was a 4 to 5 centimeter long scar at the corner of his eye. He swept across the crowd, not in a hurry to speak, but first took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it slowly. 10 seconds later, the instructor then said to everyone, "Hello, I am the chief officer of this youth training camp. Chong Haoqiang, 46 years old, has served as a night watchman for 27 years, and is a Fourth Order Awakener." As soon as these words came out, a light breath radiated from his body. The third-tier students may be okay, but the first and second-tier students were a little out of breath on the spot. He paused and raised his voice. During these 2 months, the 52 people present here will all be my students, and I will take care of them. Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan, who originally wanted to pinch each other, felt the aura emanating from the instructor. I had to be honest. They had also heard of the name Chong Haoqiang. He became a night watchman at the age of 19, and he has made countless contributions to the secretary during his 26 years in office. He has participated in the Battle of Gods, and countless aliens have died in his hands. But that's not the main thing. The other party has been into the abyss nearly 20 times in the past few decades. It was also because of the influence of the abyss cells that the opponent's body was severely traumatized. He would need to take special drugs in his next life and would not be able to go any further for the rest of his life. That's why, as soon as Chong Haoqiang appeared, he was recognized and admired by all the students. But there are a few special examples. Some students in the crowd seemed a little dissatisfied with the wait just now, and objected. Instructor Chong, you are an older generation of night watchmen, and you are a hero with countless meritorious services. But your attitude just now seems to be a little too contemptuous of us. As soon as this sentence is said, many people also nodded silently. Makes sense. Although they are young, they are still the best among this generation of night watchmen. Genius is underestimated. This will make people feel a little unhappy. Chong Haoqiang slowly exhaled a wisp of white smoke, and then pinched out the cigarette butt with 2 fingers. He looked at the students and said calmly, "That's a good statement, and it hits the point. What that person said just now is right. Instructor Chong thinks it is very reasonable. Come forward and let me see who it is." The sound was so strong that it made people's eardrums hurt. The students did not move. For a long time, a thin-looking young man walked out of the team without any fear. Very good. Chong Haoqiang looked at the young man in front of him, nodded and asked, "You still have some backbone, what's your name?" Chu Song, from Xuanai City, a second-level awakener. He stood upright and didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with what he said. Very good. Chong Haoqiang nodded. This is a good point, but you have to know. The first one needs to be shot. Being the first requires strength and a price. Report. Chu Song shouted loudly. I know. Just know. Chong Haoqiang pointed to the track paved with special sand around the perimeter of the playground. Now, 300 laps. Completed in one day. 300 laps. When everyone heard this, they all took a deep breath. The track is paved with magnetic sand obtained from the Abyss treasure chest. The awakened person will feel a heavy pulling force on it, and it may be difficult for ordinary people to even take a few steps. Not to mention running 300 laps. Chu Song frowned. He looked at Chong Haoqiang and said angrily, "Why? What's wrong with him? Being looked down upon for no reason and being punished for speaking out. It would be too disrespectful to treat them as human beings." "Why?" Chong Hao shook his head, then his eyes turned cold. He looked directly at everyone and shouted, "I said, standing out requires strength and price. Outside, maybe you have high hopes and are the geniuses that everyone is looking for. But here, you are just a bunch of weaklings." He glanced at everyone. "You want me, you want the youth training camp to recognize you. Then take some practical actions and I'll be happy to be slapped in the face by you." Chong Haoqiang said, looked at Chu Song and said, "Now. 300 laps immediately. And you guys, 150 laps for the first level, 400 laps for the third level. Finish within today." The voice fell. You can vaguely hear some students sighing. "What?" Chong Haoqiang looked at the students standing there with a smile on his face. "I think the plan I made is already very humane." Student. At this time, Song Lei suddenly stood up and said, "No, instructor, why doesn't that man run away? Isn't he also a student?" Immediately, everyone looked in the direction of Song Lei. "I see. Outside the playground. I love taking a bath, my skin feels good, oh. Lin Tian was holding a thermos cup filled with wolfberry in his left hand and carrying an oversized black bag in his right hand, whistling and walking leisurely towards the guard room. Everyone listened to the "sweet and beautiful" singing from a distance. "I rub it. What the hell is this? They have experienced what can be called devilish training here. That guy is fine, he's raised up. Instructor Chong, isn't he a student?" Among the crowd, a student asked. After Chong Haoqiang saw Lin Tian in the distance, his eyelids twitched several times. "Yes, it's a student. It's a student, why doesn't he need to run around? Yeah, it's fine to work as a part-time guard, it's a bit too much to keep healthy here." Yi Xiaoyuan looked at Lin Tian in the distance, pondered for a long time, and said affectionately, "Instructor Chong, such a person who despises the rules of the youth training camp is disrespectful to you. You are trying to train and educate us here, but what about him? Soaking goji berries in a vacuum flask is unbearable, none of us can bear it, let alone you, Instructor Chong." "Tolerable. Yes, Instructor Chong." As soon as the words came out, all the students nodded. "You must also, what? Did something strange get mixed in just now?" Everyone looked at each other. Did someone say something to Bear? Now that Great Shaw is facing a crisis, how can a place like this be a joke? Who said that? Stand up and be scolded. Chong Hao coughed twice, didn't even smoke, and said awkwardly, he doesn't need to run. No need to run. Then he doesn't need to train here, and you don't teach him, Instructor Chong. What the hell is coming here for the elderly as a student? I understand again. At this time, Yi Xiaoyuan looked suddenly enlightened. Instructor Chong, we won't make things difficult for you. Is it because he has a strong background? What kind of father is what kind of director? Uncle and aunt are the speaker and senior officials, come here to experience life. I see. When the students heard it, they suddenly understood. Almost forgot about this. No wonder Instructor Chong looked troubled when he saw the other party. It's definitely the other party's background that he can't afford to mess with. Although it's not illegal, but being a jerk in this kind of place, or at this kind of juncture. Hiss. Everyone suddenly felt an indescribable feeling. This moment, Chong Haoqiang was also suffering in his heart. He naturally knew Lin Tian's identity and what he was here for. To put it bluntly, except for the instructors in the cultural class who said something about the gods and the abyss, the other party could listen to some. Just combat and training. Who can teach him? In other words, who is qualified to teach Lin Tian? At the age of 18, he wasn't even a night watchman, so he was directly killed. Of the three gods, one of them plus senior who was directly chopped off. Just this combat power. No wonder Seeley said that the other party was the one who tempered these students. Well, what was the black bag he was holding just now? Why is it a bit like a urea bag? Forget it. Do not care. He is an auditor, that's why he can work part-time here. Chong Hao explained stubbornly. It's okay, Instructor Chong, he understands everything. Yi Xiaoyuan answered casually. At the same time, Song Lei glanced at Lin Tian who was going away. He stopped talking and stepped out first. After stepping into the magnetic field track, he started running dully. After seeing Song Lei, the others stopped talking and ran up. Chong Haoqiang looked at this group of new generation students and murmured in his heart. Hey, what I practice is your physique and strength. As for Xin Xing, leave it to the one just now. I just don't know how the other party will temper the minds of these geniuses. His uncle seems to be Speaker Wang. He muttered softly, that should be fine. Wang Yangshi, Speaker Wang. His idol, although they are a generation. The kind that was crushed by Wang Yangshi all the way. But this does not prevent him from admiring each other. One person, one shot, the 8th level awakened, killing 2 gods. Since Speaker Wang is here, the method should be correct. Since he didn't take the initiative to reveal his identity as Lin Tian, he naturally had his own method. Chong Haoqiang thought, lit a cigarette and hummed an old song from the 1980s. I'm looking forward to it. ... Magnet track. Dozens of students soon appeared in echelon stratification. Headed by Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan, it is the first echelon. The speed is about a few minutes, and it can run around the nearly 400-meter runway. Then there are the second-order awakeners, and the first-order awakeners. 3 echelons. The gap is also gradually widening. The gap of a few laps appeared in less than 10 minutes. There is also a gap between geniuses. Song Lei was already sweating profusely at this moment, but still gritted his teeth and persisted, trying to maintain his own pace. He has never met Lin Tian, although heard of his name, but apart from him, Song Lei believes that he is the strongest of this new generation. And the one named Lin Tian was a bit too weird. When he heard the name Lin Tian for the first time, he even doubted the authenticity of this person. Perhaps, maybe it was the night watchman who wanted to inspire the new generation of night watchmen. But it seems that someone said it a long time ago. The other party is the nephew of Chairman Wang, and even Director Zhang, who is now retired from Tian, came forward to vouch for his authenticity. True and false, false and true. When he didn't see the other party's true face. I am the strongest of this generation. Song Lei's heart became ruthless, and his speed increased a lot again. It is bound to widen the gap with other third-order awakeners. Yi Xiaoyuan, who was following closely behind, also felt something was wrong at this moment. Did this kid take gunpowder? Suddenly run so fast. Can't knock it. Grandma, can I let you down, old dang? Yi Xiaoyuan didn't care about anything at the moment, she just ran with one step. Isn't it fate? Run and die. With everyone stunned, the two rushed out from the front on the spot. Then, why do you still want to surpass me? Oh my god, why are you sweating? You won't be tired, won't you? Won't you? You will lose if you are tired. You fart, brat, get the hell out of here, I can carry you all the way through 400 laps. Then carry me on your back, I won't run away. You deserve it too. Duplicity, aren't you awesome, why don't you recite me? Everyone, you two are still weird. Not far away. Lin Tian held a black bag in his hand, and got a telescope out of nowhere. Quietly poking her head out, looking at the group of young people who were training not far away, a meaningful smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Run as much as you want, youngsters. Oh no, it should be crazy, get proud. Besides, what bad thoughts can a little guard have? Lin Tian, I have been watching you all the time. Hours passed. The setting sun hangs on the horizon, faintly setting. Magnet track. The speed of almost all the students slowed down at a speed visible to the naked eye. I'm exhausted. I can't do it anymore. I've only run 108 laps, and I still have 42 laps to run. It's okay for you at the first level, but my second level has doubled, more than 300 laps, and now I have only run less than 200. Isn't this killing people? Stop talking, or you'll run out of strength for a while. Aren't we here to become stronger, for Daxia? Run with one word. Rest for a while, walk for a while before running, or I'm afraid I won't have the life to protect Daxia. All of a sudden, dozens of students, regardless of gender, walked on it panting heavily. But the perspective is pulled to the other side. Convex, Sao Pan Zai. Your grandpa and I are exhausted, come on, run. I am half a meter faster than you. At the front, Yi Xiaoyuan's face was flushed and sweat was pouring down like rain. And behind him was Song Lei. You're a pure clown. I was conserving my strength just now and letting you in. Do you understand? He snorted coldly, then increased his pace a little. What's your name? What is it? It's too weak, I can't even remember. Oh, by the way, you look really ugly when you blush. With a slight hint of ridicule, Song Lei glanced at Yi Xiaoyuan and passed straight past. What are you crazy about? I'm letting you in too, my lord. If you want to talk about the entire youth training camp, I am the strongest, and you are worthy to compare with me. You won't even be able to see my taillights. Yo-yo, I don't know who will be the first to finish the run. Besides, who told you that you are the strongest in the youth academy? Is it your grandfather? Go eat my exhaust gas. Look at me, I surpass you. It's clear that I surpass you. 1,000 words are omitted here. On the runway, some students with weaker physical strength felt their legs go limp at this moment, and they sat slumped on it. The heavy suction attached to the magnet made them even feel pressure while breathing. You guys go ahead and run first. Instructor Cheng's training is so inhuman. I'll rest for a while before running. Just rest for a while. I'm tired and lying down, my throat is about to smoke. Running in this place, I always feel that something is pulling my pants. Some students spoke out of breath. At the same time, suddenly there was a loud voice behind him. Get out of the way, don't get in the way. Dodge them all, I'm not responsible for bumping into the air. All the students, are these two things still human? You've been running for 3 or 4 hours straight, don't you take a break? Ah, a man's damn desire to win. 278 laps. 279 laps. 280 laps. ... Runway perimeter. Chong Haoqiang half lied on the chair, looking at his students who were lying on the ground like dead fish, with a gratified smile on his face. This is youth. Look, you are indeed the leader of the younger generation, everyone is so energetic. Work hard, students. After all, the time left for Daxia is running out. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly realized that Lin Tian, who was poking his head out of the guard hall just now, was nowhere to be seen. Didn't it look good? Why is it missing? Never mind. Anyway, he couldn't figure out the other party's mind. Now should be the time to appreciate youth. Seeing these young people running, he couldn't help but recall the good times when he was beaten up by Wang Yangshi and Zhang Chengwen. Quote ... I still don't want to. Guard room. At this time, Lin Tian put down the telescope in his hand. Right now, there's really no need to look at it, to be honest. Continue to stare at those few people. There are currently less than 6 people running on it with energy. Among them, the 2 at the front. They seem to be called Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan. Lin Tian touched his chin and muttered. The 2 of them were doing well, and he was very pleased. It might not be long before night massage services come calling for these 2. Think of this. Lin Tian stretched his waist, took a sip of the wolfberry water in the thermos cup, and then picked up the long-lost wooden sword as if enjoying life. Swing the sword once and get the reward, a trace of sword soul. Close black lens bracket. Swing the sword once and get the reward, a trace of sword soul. Close black lens bracket. Currently, the sword has been swung 29,600 times. Close black lens bracket. That's right. After obtaining the Xiaoyao sword domain, when Lin Tian swung the sword again, he was surprised to find that the sword swing reward from the system had changed again. Up to now, he has accumulated 9,600 sword souls. In the mind scene, the mist-shrouded sword heart buzzed in it. If the sword intention gives the sword heart the soul. In the past month, Lin Tian's inferences have been made. This so-called sword soul is the equipment sold in the mall. For example, now he is quite an 18th level naked novice, and he is still the kind of person who operates consciously. The only drawback is that there is no equipment. The sword soul naturally functions as equipment. Does Gua Sha hurt without penetration? No battery life and slow recovery. The attack speed is too low and you can only swing one sword in half a day. Or is it that the movement skills are single and it is difficult to dodge the enemy's skills even if you move? I want to solve the above problems. One word. Just wave and that's it. There are nearly 9,000 sword souls, but now they are still in that thin state, as ethereal as a fairy, and will scatter at the touch of a touch. His time this month. Because Tian City needs to be rebuilt, I have invested a lot of energy in it. So much so that the number of times he swings his sword every day is greatly reduced. Otherwise, follow the previous speed. In this month, the number has reached at least 39,000, or even more. Although it was a pity, Lin Tian didn't care. Just make up for the less swing later. Such as now, those students want to complete the training tasks set by Instructor Chong. It will take at least another 3 hours or so. During this period, he could keep swinging the sword. The sun has set halfway, and it is now 8 o'clock in the evening. The nearly 50 students all completed their tasks with great difficulty at this moment. Playground. Chong Haoqiang counted the number of students. After confirming that it was correct, he read out the results. First place, Chong Haoqiang said, raising his head and looking at someone in the team, Song Lei. Second place, Yi Xiaoyuan. Speaking of which, Song Lei's brows were filled with arrogance. His peripheral vision glanced at Yi Xiaoyuan beside him seemingly casually. I have told you a long time ago that I am the strongest among the younger generation. Isn't it just for a run? This is for you. Yi Xiaoyuan curled his lips and said in dissatisfaction. I let you don't know it, right? Ah, yes, when you die, you will have the toughest mouth in your body. Song Lei sneered, if you don't accept it, bitch, wait for me on stage tomorrow and I'll beat you until you accept it. This is what you said, whoever doesn't come tomorrow will have a grandchild. At the same time, guard room, an ordinary pension doorman. Are you here to live? Night falls. Chong Haoqiang did not choose to pay attention to the two of them, and continued, third place, Bila. What? Bila? He was still exchanging insults with Song Lei, but when he heard the name, he was suddenly shocked. He ignored Song Lei and looked at Bila, who was standing in the corner of the team, looking polite and somewhat timid. This kid is actually the third place. Real or fake? It was obvious that he and Song Lei didn't notice each other at all when they were running. Wait a moment. Yi Xiaoyuan was extremely shocked. Although under the extremely humane differentiation of Instructor Chong, students of different levels only need to run the corresponding number of laps. But under this score, the one who can be ranked in the top 3 must be a third-level awakener. Oh my god. Yi Xiaoyuan smacked her lips, then looked away. It's true that people can't be judged by their appearance. Unexpectedly, the submissive and socially phobic fellow I bumped into by chance in the car today turned out to be a third-level awakened person. Really, it is not easy for everyone to come to the youth training camp. Fourth place, I need to praise this one by name. Among the top 5, almost all are third-level awakened people, but this one is a second-level awakened person. Still a girl. Chong Hao nodded strongly. Xu Yan. Fifth place, Yun Jie. Sixth place, Luo Shuishui. Soon, after the results of all the students were announced, Chong Hao waved his hand and said, seeing as it's your first day here today, you young people, I won't give you too many tasks. Let's do this for today. Oh, by the way, there is an expansion class in the morning, don't be late. After speaking, Chong Haoqiang walked towards the instructor's rest area without looking back. Dozens of students breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the instructor leave. There are also many people who are sweating coldly about the upcoming encounters in the future. Such a task on the first day. Will it be worth it after that? But, since they chose to come here, since they chose to embark on this night patrol road, then there is no reason to back down. For Daxia. Fight. Damn it, let's have a good sleep first. Do you have any of the brothers from 302? Let's go back together as a companion. Here, let's go together. A collection of 201. Stop sleeping. Do you have a meal? I'm starving. I heard the food in the youth training camp cafeteria is very good. Well, I am a second-level awakened person, and you are all looking for a partner, so I can find a girlfriend, and I won't make any mistakes, right? I don't know who suddenly made such a shocking statement in the crowd. Silly spent a lot of money to build black prisons, youth training camps. Is it to let you find a partner? How decent is it to not do business properly? But no one seemed to take this sentence seriously, and the team quickly dispersed. Night watchmen are humans too and need to live a normal life when they are no longer training. Certainly, there are exceptions. I've been shopping around this morning. There's a counter over there. Once the expansion class is over tomorrow, don't be afraid to come over, you blabbermouth. Song Lei pointed at Yi Xiaoyuan and said provocatively. He is here to prove to everyone of this generation that he is the strongest. As for this one, not even an onion. Who doesn't dare? I think you don't dare. Yi Xiaoyuan put on a dismissive attitude. You are so awesome and you have the ability, why don't you go to the development class tomorrow? Where did you fart? Why don't you show it to me tomorrow? I didn't say I wouldn't go either. Yi Xiaoyuan rolled his eyes at Song Lei, and then said, I am a high-quality and educated person, and I love classes. Do you know, only a person like me who combines morality, intelligence, body and beauty is the strongest night watchman of this generation. Where are you pissing me off? Song Lei rolled up his sleeves. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock at noon, I will let you FK for lunch. Then I will give you 2 meals, young master, and you won't even have breakfast. I will let you go to the toilet twice more, and I will beat you while holding back. The two quarreled from morning till night. Just the first day of the camp, let everyone get used to it. Someone may want to ask. You scolded so fiercely, why didn't you just solve it tonight? Naturally, I was too tired. Running 400 laps on the magnet track is too much for even a third-order awakened person. It's already a miracle to be able to stand up and open your throat to spray each other. Heads up, if you are not afraid of bones falling apart, you can try it. Then, these two people reached an unprecedented unity in terms of a brief truce. It hit it off. Just say hello today, no hands. Tomorrow, I will not say hello, only hands. On the way. Yi Xiaoyuan suddenly noticed Bai Le, who was walking to the dormitory by himself. The other party seemed to be chatting with someone on a mobile phone. Hi, fellow, as the saying goes. When the fellow villagers saw the fellow villagers, their eyes were full of tears. After finally seeing someone in the same place as her, Yi Xiaoyuan naturally enthusiastically went up to say hello. He put one hand on the other's shoulder and sighed, okay, Xiao Lezi. He also said to mention my name in the future. In the end, your kid is still pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. After noticing Yi Xiaoyuan's appearance, Bai Li's body trembled, and he naturally put the phone in his pocket, helped his eyes, and said weakly, it's just normal. Why are you being modest? Learn from Brother Yuan. If you have strength, you will be crazy and proud. The main thing is that I am the only one in the world. I am the strongest. The main thing is that I am arrogant. The young master is born with the posture of a great emperor. Ah, Bai Le rubbed the back of his head, not knowing what to say. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Yi Xiaoyuan waved his hand, and said with a relaxed face, since you are so strong, why don't you have a sparring session another day? It doesn't matter if you lose, we fellow villagers will be friends. Friendship comes first, let's learn from each other before friendship. Bai Le, just kidding. Yi Xiaoyuan patted him on the shoulder, and said quite confidently, of course, you are definitely not as strong as me. That's for sure. Bai Le lowered his head and replied in a low voice, Brother Yuan, I'm going back to sleep first. You, be careful when you're sparring tomorrow. Be careful. When Yi Xiaoyuan heard this, he looked contemptuously at Song Lei, who was not far away. Is he the only one who deserves it? Don't worry, the young master took a look. No one in the entire youth training camp is my opponent. Losing. What's that? Haven't even heard of it. The other side. Song Lei seemed to feel Yi Xiaoyuan's gaze. Without even thinking about it, I decisively returned a 3-character phrase that contained a very high number of relatives, comma. Gradually, the night became dark. Lin Tian walked out from the guard room at this time, but did not go back to the dormitory immediately. Instead, he jumped to the roof, as if rehearsing some evil plan in advance. It'll be there after the evening massage, right there. Trap it and throw it in the grove over there. Then it was a loving massage, and finally, I just left. Lin Tian gestured, the perfect route. After a simple simulation in his head, he returned to the dormitory contentedly. Well, don't think too much, everyone. Really. What kind of bad intentions could an ordinary little doorman have? I really just want to give you a massage. The next day. I don't even know if the sun has risen or not. Hey. Because you can't see it at all. Students can only rely on the time on their mobile phones or watches to identify the time, or look at the surrounding light. When it is bright, it is almost early morning. I can sleep again. But, this is the youth training camp, Black Jail. So, you get it. Bell. In an instant, harsh bells exploded in the male and female dormitory building. Invasion. There are enemies invading. FK. Don't sleep, brothers. Someone has invaded the youth training camp. It's time for us to shine. What the hell dares to break into the youth training camp? Do you know that the people here are either geniuses, instructors or leaders above the 4th level? A foreign enemy invaded the next day. Did a crack in the abyss open nearby? I'm going to meet him now. In a minute. Playground. Everyone stood here with stern faces. Who I am? Where am I? What am I doing here? Didn't the alarm go off? Why there was nothing. Where are the enemies? In the air of the crowd, there seemed to be countless crows flying slowly with periods. Waited for a few more minutes. Chong Haoqiang held a deep-fried dough stick in his hand and a cup of soy milk in his left hand, and walked over cheerfully. After seeing the students on the playground, he suppressed his smile and pretended to be puzzled. Isn't this my good student? What are you doing here? Do you miss me, Instructor Chong? But no, today is an expansion class. If you want, I can teach you a small lesson in the afternoon. Upon hearing this, everyone's heads shook like rattles. Instructor Chong, didn't the alarm sound? Yeah, I haven't seen the shadows of the 2 alien species coming out, at least an enemy is coming out. Yi Xiaoyuan yelled, and he said listlessly, military TV dramas often use routines, and our night watchmen are no exception. Sleeping late may not be allowed here. Let me guess, when the regular instructor sees us like this, he has to say. As a night watchman, he needs to be extremely vigilant every day and be on guard all the time. Today is just acting, but if next time it is really just like that, and that sort of thing. I realized the master. As soon as the students heard it, the complaints they were about to spit out immediately stuck in their mouths and they were swallowed forcefully. All right, Yi Xiaoyuan. You have to be smart. Chong Haoqiang burped after eating the deep-fried dough sticks in 3 bites, and then said, "Ah. What alarm are you talking about? That kid was talking about something just now, I've never heard of it." He took a sip of soy milk, suddenly thought of something, and calmly explained, "Ah, I forgot to tell you. Are you talking about the bell just now? Oh, you misunderstood. Our night watch division and youth training camp are very humane. Of course, it is very good for you. It was the breakfast bell just now, reminding you to have breakfast. The logistics of the cafeteria have already been done, and it's hot." All the students. Thank you so much. The night watchman is still weird. I was so moved that I was about to cry. Room 000. At this moment, Lin Tian sat up from the bed very comfortably. I slept soundly. I didn't expect the bed to be so soft. He slowed down, and then took off the sound-isolating earmuffs on his head. This was given to him by Lu Jiwei yesterday. What to say? There is a breakfast bell every morning. You can bring this if you don't want to have breakfast. Simply wash up. After putting on his clothes, Lin Tian came to the cafeteria early. In the cafeteria at this time, Lu Jiwei and other instructors in charge here, including the person in charge, all ate here. After seeing Lin Tian coming, he also warmly greeted him. "Come here to eat, it happens to be together, the more people are lively." "Okay," Lin Tian responded with a smile, and casually put a bowl of millet porridge in front, plus 2 pieces of pie. There were 9 people present, including Lu Jiwei. Everyone had a considerable position in the department before they came to the youth training camp. Of course, the strength will not be bad. After all, in the night watch division, every position is earned by merit and strength. Relying on relationships to go through the back door. This trick doesn't work in the night watch division. Even if it's the speaker. Maybe the speaker. Never mind, neither can the speaker. Including Chong Haoqiang, who is outside, there are a total of 10 night watchmen above the 4th level in the youth training camp. Of course, this does not include Lin Tian. He is a doorman. Tier 4, he doesn't seem to have a fourth order. From the moment he obtained the system, it seemed that his strength could no longer be collectively referred to by class, but by swinging a sword. As long as you swing your sword, you can become stronger. 8 o'clock in the morning. After experiencing the dinner bell incident in the morning, all the students walked into the lecture hall of the main building with a hutch. I should be the first. Then I'm second. Who? Didn't you see that there was a person sitting on it? When students enter the lecture hall, immediately, he noticed that there seemed to be someone sitting in the last row of the lecture hall. It was Lin Tian impressively. Who is the student here? It looks a little strange. How come so early? You forgot, isn't that person the student guard who worked part-time at the gate yesterday? Oh, I remembered that too, but I don't need to train that. Shish, be quiet. Why do you think people have a big backstage? Why don't you think about strength? Maybe it's so strong that you don't need to train. Did I say he has a big backstage? Quote. Several students finished their order, and after entering the lecture hall, they sat down on the chairs silently. Gossiping is unacceptable in the night watch. If the other party really has a background, then gossip in front of him. Isn't this purely for yourself? Furthermore, what if they are really the kind who are so strong that they don't need training? The pattern will be opened again. Maybe he is the 18-year-old Lin Tian who kills God. Although the idea is impossible. They are already capable of beheading gods, and Ji Yuji has long been recruited by Si Li. How could it appear in this kind of youth training camp? Let's not talk about whether this person named Lin Tian was created by the secretary to motivate them. Even if there is, why do you come to the youth training camp? Clean them up. At this time, the door of the lecture hall was opened, and everyone's thoughts were interrupted at this moment. Walking in from the outside was a woman wearing high heels and wearing a black instructor's uniform. She could vaguely see a rather hot figure. About early 28 or 19. But being able to be an instructor here, even if it's teaching extended courses. The strength is probably around the 4th level. Hi everyone, I'm Yi Xinyue, the instructor of your future expansion courses. Today's extended class, we are going to talk about it. God. Those two simple words made all the students present feel uneasy. It caused Daxia to look like this now. In addition to the abyss of disaster, the other is the so-called God. Instructor Yi, God, did you see it in the postscript a month ago? At this time, a student asked aloud. They have more or less heard of the term gods. Although I don't know much about it, after that battle of gods. Not to mention everyone, at least the group of students who entered the youth training camp saw the appearance of a god. Gods look different. The gods in the imperial capital and the demon capital are more human-like. Although they look different from other species, they have nothing in common with humans except for their human-like body. And the god in Tian City looks a bit like a black and red moth. Certainly, they have also seen each other's strength, so they chose to enter the youth training camp. Yi Xinyue nodded, and tapped twice on the LCD screen behind her. Afterwards, rows of floating data text began to appear automatically. And attached a few photos. On the screen, photos and information about the gods appear in abundance. As you can see, the picture on the screen is the information about the gods that the Night Watchman has captured over the years. Last party. Lin Tian raised his head and stared at the screen carefully. There are a total of 13 photos, 3 of which are the 3 gods who were revived a month ago. As for the rest, he did not understand. The materials that Uncle Zhang copied on the USB disk were never mentioned before. The others seemed to be in the same mood as Lin Tian. More than a dozen gods. Could it be that there were gods revived before? Then why haven't they heard of it? Yi Xinyue looked at the reaction of the students in front of her, and explained with a smile, what you see now is what you want to expand today. Because the Night Watchman gradually discovered in this one, maybe the gods. There are 2 distinct kinds. What? Everyone was shocked. Are there different types of gods? Humanoids and non-humans. That's right. Yi Xinyue nodded, and continued. 30 years ago, the Night Watch Division discovered the god for the first time at an altitude of hundreds of thousands of meters from the blue star. And that is infinitely close to the starry sky of the universe. 10 years ago, the Night Watch division fought a god for the first time, and that god didn't wake up from the blue star, but appeared from the sky without warning. As she spoke, she pointed to one of the photos on the first row on the screen. Code name, Poseidon. This god is wrapped in azure blue water from top to bottom, and a giant dark blue dragon hovers beside him. When he came for the first time, he looked down on the human beings below with eyes that were arrogant to the world. Yi Xinue said while stroking the other photos with her fingers. That is the deity photographed from different angles. He seems to have come to the blue star to look for something. At first, human beings were very curious about this kind of creature called a god that was only observed once, but gradually. The other party seems to have failed to find it, and for the first time showed hostility towards our night watchman. Yi Xinue choked up for a moment. In that battle, almost half of the Night Watch division's top combat power was mobilized. In the end, Director Zhang and Chairman Wang were seriously injured, and dozens of fifth-level Night Watchmen burned their lives. He was seriously injured. Her bright eyes suddenly dimmed a little. Since then, the power of creatures like gods has been deeply engraved in everyone's minds. Lin Tian nodded silently in the back row after listening. Uncle Zhang and what he said before, these things are not far from each other, and there is not much discrepancy. But before he had further thoughts, what Yi Xinue showed gave him a new understanding. What I'm going to say next is actually the biggest doubt of the Night Watchman today, she said, and then switched to a recording on the screen. This is the Battle of the Gods. A person who has awakened the ability to record saved by the Night Watchman. After speaking, Yi Xinue pressed play. Within tens of seconds of recording. At the beginning, there was a roar of battle, and countless night watchmen chanted their precepts loudly, and then rushed forward without hesitation. In the 7th second, the recording suddenly fell silent. Short gasps followed, including cheers from the night watchmen. It can be heard that the night watchman won this battle. The 13th second of recording. The god suddenly spoke. His voice seemed to have its own reverberation. The dying ants are now in their final stages. When the gods recover, this last surviving lonely boat will usher in the eternal night era. The final recording was just under 3 seconds long. Under the astonishment of everyone, the recording stopped abruptly. The voice of the words eternal night era kept echoing in their minds. Era of eternal night. What is that? Era. Could it be related to dynasties, such as Qing dynasty, Tang dynasty, Chan dynasty, etc., or what era? What is that final stage, and the remaining lone boat? This goddamn god hates the Riddler the most in this life. Finally, is it a disaster that belongs to Blue Star and belongs to Daxia? Will it be the end? This moment, when everyone is confused by this unfamiliar vocabulary. Lin Tian frowned fiercely. The final period, eternal night era. So familiar. He seemed to be saying these words when he beheaded Swotoxin with Senior Hu that day. The other party also said this sentence before he died. What exactly is it? Is it true that it is the same as what the person just said, an era that is about to start? Yi Xinue patted the table, motioning for everyone to quiet down. These things were just recorded by the night watchman by accident. Whether they are true or not has never been verified. But those are not the focus of this expansion. She quit the recording on the screen, and then added a picture of another god beside the first god. Lin Tian glanced at the photo. It was Sortoxin. He killed the big black moth with his own hands. Couldn't be more familiar. Back to the original topic. Yi Xinue said one by one. The reason why the night watchman guessed that there are two completely different types of gods. It's because the way the gods manifested this time is different from the previous gods. In the War of Gods a month ago, the gods successfully revived the 3 gods in Blue Star by sacrificing innocent people. Speaking of this, Yi Xinue's tone became serious. It's not difficult to guess, the Blue Star we live in, or the place deep under the Great Shah. It seems that some gods are sealed. The underground of Daxia is sealed with gods. With these words, everyone felt that their cognition had been subverted. That is, under their feet, there is a group of sealed gods. Yi Xinue sighed. Although it's a conjecture, judging from the current situation, the revival of the gods in the mouth of the gods is very likely to release the gods who were sealed in the depths of the Blue Star. As for why these gods were sealed, I don't know, she said, shaking her head. Perhaps there used to be a group of powerful human beings who were almost ascended like night watchmen, and maybe they were sealed in the depths of Blue Star. At this time, suddenly someone said, "What about the gods from outside? Are they not sealed?" "That's right," Yi Xingyue nodded. "From the first time the night watchman discovered the god, the other party has not been sealed, but can appear near the Blue Star, and even have a fierce battle with humans. That's why the Night Watch Division proposed that there are two different types of gods." She put the god code named Poseidon and Sotox together with her hands. Only a month ago, after beheading the other two gods, Chairman Wang became a senior who participated in both the previous and subsequent battles of the gods. Speaker Wang expressed his views on these two gods. Lin Tian couldn't help but become serious. These things are indeed something he has never touched. Or maybe he didn't think about it. After all, he was only an 8-year-old kid 10 years ago when he fought against the unsealed god from outside the sky. Even the system has not awakened. If it weren't for this expansion class, his head would not be able to think of it here. Yi Xingyue stood at the front, and then divided the gods into two groups. The gods who recovered a month ago formed a group, and the remaining 10 gods from outside the sky formed a group. According to the differences proposed by Speaker Wang, the other party said that the only difference between these two gods is the power they radiate. She tapped the screen. The former is the god of outer heaven, and the power he exudes makes him feel very new. And the power of the 3 gods revived in the depths of the Blue Star gave him the feeling that it was old, new, and old. It looks simple and easy to understand. In fact, if you think about it in depth, it may involve a lot of secrets and the like. The one who lives in the starry sky of the universe is the new god who has never been sealed. And those who are sealed in the depths of the Blue Star are called the old gods or ancient gods by the Night Watch Division. Speaking of which, the content of this expansion course is actually coming to an end. Yi Xingyue turned off the screen behind her, and then took out a USB flash drive from her hand. "If you want to know more, you can come to me in the afternoon. Here are the code names of the gods, as well as other information." After speaking, she walked out of the lecture hall. Before leaving, Yi Xingyue suddenly thought of something, turned around and added, "By the way, so far the Night Watch Division has only found traces of gods in the cosmic starry sky and in the depths of the Blue Star. As for whether there are gods in the abyss plane, I don't know. At least on the 6th floor of the abyss, no creatures other than calamities have been found." After speaking, Yi Xingyue walked out of the lecture hall. Get out of class has ended. The other students also had serious expressions at this time. "Under our feet, there are gods sealed, many, many gods." Some students looked at their feet with a very worried tone. Just the 3 revived ancient gods almost overturned the entire Great Sha. But in the future, if dozens or even hundreds of gods recover together. Until then, what should be the fate of Daxia? It's over. At the same time, Yi Xiaoyuan roared loudly, and then his figure rushed to the battle stage at an extremely fast speed. "Whoever arrives the slowest will be cowardly. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Song Lei was so angry that he almost stood up, turned over and fell off the glass on the 2nd floor on the spot. "If I don't beat your F-King shit out today, you're not eating enough." "Hey Nima, you're just kidding." Yi Xiaoyuan's voice came from outside. "Don't you dare to run over there. Don't talk nonsense. If you have the ability to surpass me, you're running the wrong way, you idiot." Song Lei. In the lecture hall, before he knew it, only Lin Tian was left. He stood up unhurriedly. After the others learned that Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan were going to fight each other, they had already gone to join in the fun. "Hey, young people are really energetic." Lin Tian looked at the 2 people running outside through the windowsill. "I'm not in a hurry. After all, the protagonist usually appears at the end." Battle table. At this time, the special venue made of special metal was already surrounded by enthusiastic students who had the potential to eat melons. Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan. The 2 were undoubtedly the 2 who performed the best on the first day. And they are all 3rd-order awakeners. The top talents of the same generation are singled out. It is really hard to say who will win. Ha 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 ha. On the battle stage, Yi Xiaoyuan supported his waist and gasped, "I'm 6 seconds and 8 minutes slower than my young master, aren't you scared?" "I'm cowardly." Song Lei's face was almost contorted with anger, and the yellow hair wanted to stand up as a spike. If it wasn't for me running the wrong way, could you be faster than me? It's a shame, isn't it? You are a big man and become an old man. Yi Xiaoyuan snorted coldly. What did we say? Is it because who is slow is who is cowardly? Master, am I faster than you? The corner of Song Lei's mouth twitched, unable to speak for a long time. Wait for a while. Only then did he forcefully say, FK his grandma, you'll be fine. That's about the same. Watching the two spray each other like a show. Watching the students can be described as a face of enjoyment. Right, this is the taste. It's only the second day, no matter men or women, after seeing these two goods, it's like being addicted. Don't watch the two of them spray each other for a long time. It feels like there are ants crawling on my body. Master, I left the words here today. Yi Xiaoyuan shouted. Whoever wins today is the strongest. Just you. Are you worthy of defeating Lao Su? Believe it or not, I told you to fly. Song Lei took off his coat and exposed his upper body. At the same time, it also allowed everyone to see clearly the scars left on each other's body during the battle. Geniuses are constantly honed in battle. But the negative buff is, after a long time, it is easy to gradually lose sight of the north in the word, genius. Hey, please let me fly, Grandpa Yuan. Yi Xiaoyuan replied meanly, but then his expression turned serious. How the hell can you beat me? Master is the strongest of this young generation. You fart, I'm the one. Just when the two made their final pre-war declaration. Behind the students, under a big tree, Lin Tian watched the two vying for the best performance of the same generation with a blank face, and there was no wave in his heart. Ah, that's right. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 81. The perspective turns back to the battle platform. This moment, Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan stood facing each other, with a distance of no more than 15 meters between them. Around, the students watching here consciously shut their mouths. Now watch the fun. Students below the second level may want to gain some experience in the two-person battle. But there are also a small number of third orders present, including Yun Jie, who was in the car before. Even Bila, who had always had a low sense of presence, stood on the edge of the crowd and began to watch. Both are third-order awakeners, and they are both geniuses among the local night watchmen. Who doesn't have the arrogance to compete for the strongest? But they know it. Competing for the first place does not affect their original intention when they first chose to become night watchmen. Everyone wants to come here. How big is the gap between each other, or there is no gap? Master, if you don't beat you down today, how will you kill the gods and those alien catastrophes that came running from the abyss? Big words. Song Lei stretched his muscles. Hit me. Rely on your strength or your broken mouth. You are not allowed to say that the young master broke his mouth. Yi Xiaoyuan pointed at the other party and cursed. Just say it and say it. Song Lei naturally ignored it, but intensified it even more. The strong smell of gunpowder in the air. After saying these 3 sentences, it was instantly ignited. The two set off at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the two sides shortened the distance of more than 10 meters to less than half a step. Fists facing each other. Boom. After a loud bang, the two each took a step back. This punch, have equal shares. Everyone touched their chins and watched carefully. None of them have the ability to use their own awakened objects. Probably. Maybe. Let's open 55. That's it. Yi Xiaoyuan withdrew his fist and looked at the other party with disdain. You're not so weak, are you? Master, I only used less than 6% of my strength. Fart your grandma. Song Lei's eyes were round and round. He was not used to it at all, and he scolded back directly. Don't think that I didn't notice. Where are your arms trembling secretly? Is it hurting? Do you want to be lighter? This is only 3 points less than the strength. You slander the young master. Yi Xiaoyuan swung his fist. Who shook it? I don't feel any pain, sir. You're the one shaking. I watched it. I don't. You have it. I don't have me without me. You have you and you. 1,000 words omitted here again. A few minutes later, the two of them were probably tired of cursing. It was the moment when the two sides stopped spraying each other. A powerful aura suddenly erupted around the two of them. Song Lei shouted loudly, and his whole body was suddenly wrapped in circles of electric wires, and bright blue lightning burst out from his fists. This is his awakened object, named Thunder and Lightning Core. The ability is simple and rude, you can use the power of lightning for your own use. Look at Yi Xiaoyuan again. At this moment, facing the galloping thunder and lightning, he looked calm and unhurried. His figure kept moving on the stage. The empty hands just shook a few times easily, and in a blink of an eye, more than a dozen throwing knives condensed with spiritual power appeared. For spiritual awakeners, the awakening object is Assassination Toolbox. Its ability can condense hundreds of types of hidden weapons with mental power, and with this hidden weapon, it can not only cause damage to the body, but also affect the soul. Commonly known as real harm. The real battle is on the verge of breaking out now. Several dark flying knives condensed with spiritual power pierced the air and slashed towards Song Lei. The latter seemed to have been prepared for this sudden attack. The two fists merged, and thunder and lightning suddenly appeared. The flying knife collided with the dazzling thunder. It only took a moment for the airwaves to blow away, and the wind and sand rolled up in the center of the battle platform. The students below the second level narrowed their eyes and retreated involuntarily. The third level students are in better condition. Although he was slightly affected, fortunately he didn't retreat, he just smacked his lips. Very strong. Both are strong. Not only are the awakened objects strong, but the combat talents are also frighteningly fast. Off the field, some people were shocked, and naturally some people were eager to try it. He looked like he could FK me. Why should the two of them compete to be the strongest of their generation? I am also at level 3, and my awakened items and talents are no worse than them. Coming to the youth training camp to improve yourself is one of them, and you also have to fight for your reputation. You should always satisfy your pride as a genius. But certainly not today. There are many people present who have this idea. Far away, Chong Haoqiang, who was strolling outside, seemed to have discovered the fight between the two. He slapped a hat and nodded happily. I didn't expect it to start so soon. It's good to be young. Almost every youth training camp will have such a group of students. Don't do anything, just roll. The reason is to become the strongest night watchman of his generation. In those days, he is also the boy who strives to become the strongest of the younger generation. However, after being beaten several times by Wang Yangshi and Zhang Chengwen in turn, this idea was completely abandoned. Strongest, the strongest of his generation who is a fart. Life still matters. Thinking of this, Chong Haoqiang couldn't help but tremble. Hiss, he was then. There are two people, Wang Yangshi and Zhang Chengwen. Who dares to claim to be the strongest, and who dares to claim to be invincible? Damn it, I have never experienced the violent beatings of these two people. That's really a beating. The two of them were like bandits, they would kill anyone who disobeyed, and they would take turns beating them up. After finishing the shooting in the morning, if you see the opportunity in the evening, you have to cover it with a sack. Circle kick. Proper gangster. In the end, the two of them almost beat the night watchmen of their generation back and forth. Those who were so arrogant and eager to be the strongest of their generation almost shrank in fear and began to improve their strength step by step. Chong Hao shook his head strongly. It's better not to think about such painful memories. He watched from a distance for a while. These two little guys, their talent ceiling is quite good. They have been trained well in the youth training camp. They may be able to achieve something in the future. Chong Haoqiang said and looked at the other third-level awakened people around him. This group of people doesn't look simple. The people who came here beat them like this and didn't even try to restrain them. I'm still thinking of giving it a try later. After saying that, he looked back. After he watched the final and strongest battle between Zhang Chengwen and Wang Yangshi. This kind of battle can no longer be tolerated by him. That's not to say it's not enjoyable to watch. It is compared with those two people. It's so small that it seems like a big witch. Just as he was about to leave, out of the corner of his eye he suddenly noticed a person standing under the big tree outside. Lin Tian. Chong Hao glanced attentively, and his body suddenly trembled. A trace of cold sweat appeared on my back for no apparent reason. Something is wrong. There's something wrong with that look. Looking at Lin Tian in the distance. That expression, that stance, that posture. What the hell, the more I look at him, the more he looks like Wang Yangshi back then. The battle on the stage was tense. The two opened and closed, and did no less than 60 rounds in one go. As for the result, Still evenly divided. Maybe sometimes Song Lei would gain some advantage, and after a few taunts, he was quickly beaten back by Yi Xiaoyuan on the other side. See if I don't fool you today. It's not sure who hits who. Don't forget, I gave you 2 meals, my lord. I didn't even go to the toilet. Unknowingly, the time has come to the evening. Boom, loud bangs sounded continuously from the battle platform. Yes, that's right, these 2 goods are not finished yet. Most of the students watching from the audience had dispersed by now. There are only a few people left who are full of curiosity, wanting to see who can win between the 2 of them. It's over, these 2 guys are both on drugs, right? It's been a day, and they haven't finished yet. I'm sleepy. The attack method has changed from the previous mutual game to the turn-based system now. How about you 2 playing the Purcell? Is this the battle to compete for the strongest of the same generation? You release the waves and throw 2 small knives over there. Is this a competition of strength, or who is more bloody? Hey, why don't you 2 take a break and fight another day? At this time, a student yelled from below. But soon he was sent back to the past by someone on stage. Impossible, all the students. At the same time, Chong Haoqiang, who hadn't seen him for a long time, yawned and walked over leisurely. He glanced at the 2 people who were fighting in a turn-based battle on the stage, and smiled helplessly. Then he turned his attention to the dozen or so students who were watching the battle in the audience. The students who left have already been notified. I have been looking for you for a long time, but I didn't expect that these 2 goods have not been finished yet. The other students glanced at each other and asked, Instructor Chong, have you been notified of something? It's not a big deal, it's related to tomorrow's training. Chong Hao shook his head strongly, and said, at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, we will gather in the virtual hall on the 1st floor. I will tell you the specific training content when everyone arrives tomorrow. Okay, all the students nodded after listening. Oh, by the way, when these 2 guys finish fighting, tell them, don't forget about tomorrow's training. In the middle of the night, the moon and stars are thin. There was no one watching the battle. As for the stage. You can't do it, kid. Song Lei held his stomach, his body was already exhausted. Surrender, you can't beat me with your stupid mouth. Fart, this is the number 1 of his generation, I will be the young master. Yi Xiaoyuan grinned widely, the spiritual power in his body was about to be drained. The 2 sides confronted each other, and did not make the next move in a tacit understanding. After about a few seconds, only a plop was heard. The 2 of them collapsed to the ground at the same time, with no more strength left. Dozens of hours of fierce fighting. In the end it was a draw. They are not convinced. Grandma, you're lucky today, I'm a little out of shape today. Who hasn't had a period of weakness? Young master, my strength today is less than 70% of my heyday. The 2 each said their own harsh words. But after a while, after realizing that he didn't have the strength to continue fighting, after pondering for a while, he said in unison, a truce. Truce. Speaking together, even the 2 of them couldn't help being stunned. Barely accept your opinion. Today is considered cheap for you. Sink again. The atmosphere gradually became subtle. In the dead of night, Yi Xiaoyuan and Song Lei stopped talking to each other, and both planned to return to the dormitory after recovering some strength. Another half-hour passed. Song Lei stood up from the ground staggeringly, and started to walk around with a limp. But his direction was not the dormitory, but the other side. Yi Xiaoyuan opened one eye and looked at the other party. What's up? You still want to continue? I'll accompany you. The voice fell. Unexpectedly, Song Lei did not speak, but walked to Yi Xiaoyuan, stretched out his hand, get up. Yi Xiaoyuan was about to speak, but was surprised. The sun comes out in the west. He said nothing and thought carefully. Finally, he stood up from the ground with Song Lei's hand. Yi Xiaoyuan patted the dust on his body and said, have grown up, you are not afraid of being beaten by me, right? What a fool, I pulled you up and asked you to help me back to the dormitory quickly. It's an honor for you to pull me up, and help you. It's more like transferring me here. Don't give me any nonsense. Ever since. The 2 supported each other and walked to the dormitory with difficulty. But, The real protagonist has yet to appear. Forest path. There are no street lights in the youth training camp, so at night, only some dormitories are still lightly lit. On a small road like this, visibility is no more than 3 meters. Oh, is it already so late? Yi Xiaoyuan coughed and walked forward with heavy steps. It's almost 11 o'clock, do you think it's too late? Song Lei said angrily. Clatter. Suddenly, the bushes nearby suddenly moved. Who? Song Lei reacted promptly and looked over after hearing the sound. Nothing, it's probably a mouse. Yi Xiaoyuan waved his hand, signaling the other person to walk faster. Something's wrong, be careful. If it were a mouse, the bushes would make a noise. But the sound just now seemed to only appear for a moment. It's like he's trying to get their attention. You're not going to make me stupid, right? This is a youth training camp, with more than a dozen 4th and 5th level bosses in charge. Yi Xiaoyuan didn't care about this. This is also a kind of trust he has in the Night Watch division. There are instructors and people in charge. Their safety must be guaranteed. But, next moment, a figure fell from the sky. The black sack was put on Yi Xiaoyuan's head. Yi Xiaoyuan. Then, without waiting for Song Lei to react, Lin Tian carried Yi Xiaoyuan, picked up the second black urea bag prepared in advance with his other hand, and put the other person in it. The 2 3rd-level awakeners were like little chickens in Lin Tian's hands. There is no way to fight back. Although it was his first time committing a crime. Although this is my first time giving someone a late-night massage. But Lin Tian's technique is quite skillful. His hands were very precise and blocked their mouths through the urea bag. He could only struggle and make a whimpering sound. Ah, enemy, kill, ah. Lin Tian put on black gloves, always remembering what Uncle Wang said to him. Take it easy, don't get killed, ... A few minutes later, Lin Tian took off the urea bag and looked at Yi Xiaoyuan and Song Lei, who fainted. He sighed sadly. Come on, cool guys. He will definitely grow up and become a powerful night watchman in the future. I'm optimistic about you. After entertaining the 2 distinguished guests, Lin Tian carefully cleaned up the traces of the crime around him, including drag scratches and broken branches. Before leaving, he glanced at Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan, who were lying on the ground whimpering, and squeezed his throat to remind, tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning, there will be training in the virtual hall on the 1st floor. After speaking, he left the scene. Wait until you return to the guard room. Lin Tian couldn't help sighing. He is really a nice guy. Just give them a massage late at night, but don't forget to remind them about tomorrow's training before leaving. I'm afraid there aren't many warm-hearted people like him in this world. Late at night, Lin Tian did not sleep. Instead, he picked up the wooden sword and stood in a deserted small empty space, swinging the sword alone. While others are training, his strength cannot fall behind. Swing the sword once and get the reward, a trace of sword soul. Close black lens bracket. Swing the sword once and get the reward, a trace of sword soul. Close black lens bracket. After the strength has been improved, he swung his sword much faster than before. Swinging the sword hundreds of times, it only took a while to complete. Currently, a total of 30,000 sword swings. Close black lens bracket. Acquire the sword skill of heaven and man. 10,000 swords return to the sect. Close black lens bracket. In an instant, a familiar feeling came from Lin Tian's eyebrows. Today's mood has changed tremendously from the beginning. The river is filled with clouds and mist. Kunpeng flies thousands of miles above. Amidst the mountains, laughter and laughter can be heard from the human villages. Lin Tian stood on the top of the mountain. Looking back, at the edge of the mindscape, the space gradually ripples. Countless images condensed into a ball of light and penetrated into Lin Tian's body. Next second, Lin Tian felt his body light up, and then found that he was already in a purple cloud. He reached out his hand with some confusion, wanting to touch the purple mist, but the latter disappeared the moment he touched it. Is this poisonous fog? Although it was an illusion, he could still feel the danger of the poisonous mist. He knew it very well. If this poisonous mist was real, even he would die within half a minute. In a trance, Lin Tian seemed to notice that there seemed to be several figures above the poisonous fog. Look up. The center of the poisonous fog is also the place where the poisonous fog is most concentrated. 3 high-spirited young men stood in the air. Similar to him, the other 3 also wore masks to hide their faces. "Brother, what should we do in the poisonous fog?" one of the young men wearing a mask said slightly worriedly. "The 10,000 poison formation has been completed. It will be difficult to find anyone in this world who can break this formation. Brother, we are afraid that we will be trapped here this time." "No problem." The leader waved his hand lightly. He wore a smiling mask, and then looked down, but after just one glance, the expression on the young man's mask became serious. "This formation can be broken." Between hands, tens of thousands of spiritual swords flew out of their bags and hung in the air. The leading young man had long flowing hair and smiled faintly when faced with the deadly formation that ranked among the top 3 in the world. He casually picked out a long sword in the air. As tens of thousands of spiritual swords began to gather, they gathered into a huge long sword in less than a few seconds. Thousands of swords have returned to one, and the spiritual swords have been united, only one is left to break. The young man said and suddenly raised his head. "Then with this sword, I will destroy your Swung position." The voice broke. The 100-meter-long sword suddenly swung towards the top of the poisonous mist. The poisonous mist suppresses downwards. Guard the top like a mountain. The world of mortals is swaying with disdain, and the heavenly sword from thousands of miles away breaks through the sky. Thousands of miles of clouds were cut apart by this sword. The vast 10,000 poison formation disappeared under this sword. The formation has been broken and the clear sky has returned. The young man bathed in the sunshine, and then looked at Lin Tian who was watching below. "You and I are destined, and this sword will be taught to you." Below, Lin Tian was shocked by this sword. When he came to his senses, all the poisonous fog around him dissipated. Congratulations to the host for successfully understanding the heavenly sword skill. 10,000 swords return to one. Close black lens bracket. After hearing the system prompt, Lin Tian's consciousness returned to his mind, but his mood could not calm down for a long time. That young man just now looks like it should be about his age. But his strength and attainments in swordsmanship were infinitely higher than his. Sometimes, Lin Tian couldn't help but think. The system gave him the sword skills passed down by his predecessors. So this group of people, do they really exist? Just like the boy just now. The other party seemed to feel his presence. Even at the age of 18, even this cheater like him is far behind. One can imagine how terrifying that young man's talent must be. If it is real. But why is there no news about them in this world? Lin Tian's complexion was heavy, and he kept thinking in his heart. He accidentally thought of the key points that Instructor Yi mentioned in his lecture that morning. No one knows why those ancient gods were sealed deep in the blue star. Maybe in the past, there was a group of awakened ones similar to night watchmen. Them. Could it be the group of people who once sealed the ancient gods? The next day, 7 in the morning. All the students came to the virtual hall on the first floor on time. Are those actual combat warehouses? There seems to be only one in our city's Night Watch Division branch. I didn't expect there to be close to 100 of them here. It's going to cost money. Phew, today's training was conducted in the actual combat warehouse. Okay, I thought I was going to run laps on the magnet track again. The students were talking quietly, feeling lucky for today's training content. Aren't these Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan who were dueling yesterday? If you don't tell me, I didn't notice it. Why are you so honest today? Squirt, I feel uncomfortable all day long. Behind the crowd, Song Lei and Yi Xiaoyuan stood there with bruises and swollen faces, saying nothing. Grandmas, I don't know what happened last night. It was good to go to the dormitory. I don't know what happened, but for no apparent reason, I was stuffed into a sack and beaten up. The most outrageous is yet to come. What the hell, when the two of them were beaten so hard that they were a little delirious, they even heard each other remind them to come to class this morning. Hey, this guy is pretty cool. After beating people, I never forget to remind them to study hard. It's just a minor injury. It's just a minor injury. The two said in unison. After realizing that the two of them didn't say anything, the others turned their heads in disappointment. The front, Chong Hao forcefully cleared his throat, signaling for everyone to be quiet. Wait for everyone to stop talking. The middle-aged man next to him, who looked like a scientific researcher in a white robe, said slowly, "Hello students, what is before you is the actual combat warehouse developed by the Night Watch Division in recent years. In this warehouse, consciousness can be synchronized into the virtual space designed in advance. The strength, including all numerical values, will be the same as the original body." Just when the middle-aged man was explaining this machine, no one noticed. Crowd corner. It seems that someone has been keeping his head down. It seems to be conveying some information. After explaining the specific uses of the actual combat warehouse, Chong Haoqiang, who had been silent for a long time, spoke at this moment. Today's training is completely carried out in this combat cabin. The training scene has been set up in advance by this Chike member. It's divided into 3 groups. It's the same as yesterday. Students of different levels have different difficulties. The specific training content will be known after you go in. Wait for him to finish. Officer Chi pressed the main control button in his hand. Nearly 100 actual combat chambers were opened at the same time. As your favorite regular instructor, let me give you a piece of advice: you have to cooperate in it. Otherwise, if you want to complete this training content, I'm afraid it's impossible. The words fell. All students enter the actual combat cabin. The hatch closes. Consciousness unified into the simulated scene. In the virtual hall, Chong Haoqiang looked at the loaded city on the big screen, and said, "Old Chi, how long do you think it will take for these students to pass this training content?" "About 12 hours. After pondering for a while, Member Chi K replied, "To protect the human beings in the city, and to resist at least 15 waves of alien species from the abyss of disaster, if you don't cooperate, 12 hours is enough." 12 hours. Chong Haoqiang looked worriedly at the students who had already entered the actual combat cabin in front of him. This is a bit too much mental burden for them. If you still fail to pass within 8 hours, you can give them some reminders to let them consciously withdraw from the actual combat cabin. Get out. Old Chong, Daxia doesn't have much time. Every inch of time is worth every inch of time. Now is the time to race against time. Member Chi obviously disagreed with Chong Haoqiang's words. Even if the seedlings are encouraged, this generation of night watchmen must grow up quickly. No, Chong Haoqiang had a tough attitude. After such a long period of time, you will have a mental breakdown, and that's not how it works to encourage growth. If you don't release them within 8 hours, don't blame me for falling out with you. But why, aren't we all dead yet? Even if it does come to that time, it's us who are going forward. Seeing Chong Haoqiang's resolute attitude, Member Chi had no choice but to agree. You're right, it's my problem. Peripherals of the youth training camp. Here's the news: that group of trainees has entered the actual combat cabin and started training. At this time, a man in suspenders wearing a chicken headgear whispered, "The group of people who also believe in God, are they here?" Coming. In the mountains and streams. The 4 apostles of the religion are lurking here. They are the 4 apostles of rooster, ox, dog and monkey. As for strength, they are all 5th order awakened people. At this time, another 2 figures appeared from not far away. A man and a woman. They have strange costumes, dressed like knights, with strange graffiti painted on their faces. It looks, not a native of Daxia. After the Mingji apostle saw the 2 of them, he asked in a sharp voice, "Have you finished your investigation?" One of the men thought for a while, then spoke in his not-so-fluent Daxia language. "According to the information you provided, in the youth training camp, there are about 8 4th-level awakeners, and 5 level awakeners. There are 3 of them, and..." "What else?" The man paused, then struggled and said, "There is another person who seems to be a 1st-order awakened person. He seems to be a guard." The doorman. Hearing these 2 words, the Mingji apostle suddenly remembered the news he had just received 2 days ago. There is indeed a guard in the academy. The strength is unknown, and there is a high probability that he is here for retirement. His performance is mediocre, and his suspected background is very large, which can be ignored. It turns out that the doorman he mentioned really has. The Mingji envoy waved his bare hands. "It's just a small doorman, I'll take care of it later." After the action, according to God's will, kill all the descendants of these stupid people. Follow God's will. Follow the will of God. Several other apostles followed suit. The 2 weirdos who were dressed like knights didn't shout out at the same time. Mingji Apostle stared at the youth training camp in the distance. A month ago, due to the gods' mistrust of them, only 3 followers were sent. Unexpectedly, they were all killed by those stupid night watchmen in the end. This operation, we can't let my god down again. If God completely abandons us and no longer chooses to come to this world, then the new world we long for will never appear. Oh, that's right, what's the name of your organization? I only have great gods in my mind, and other things are easy to forget. The Mingji Apostle glanced at the 2 people beside him, and asked aloud. Tarot. Ah, Tarot. We also follow God's will. This place is the starting point of the eternal night era. God asked us to eradicate all the stubborn people here. The man spoke flatly. The woman beside her didn't speak, but just nodded. They have colorful graffiti painted on their faces, wear silver armor, and hold knight lances. Wow, are these 2 new recruits from the God sect? Another voice came from among them. No, what were you listening to? Mingji Apostle complained. With such a slack personality, what will you do after the real God comes to the world? It's a shame for the gods to ask such a question. He cursed. Hey, don't care about those details, I'm a little late, what are these 2 guys called? The voice asked calmly. Really, I'll say it for the last time. The Mingji Apostle adjusted his slightly crooked overalls and explained. These 2 came from an organization called Tarot outside of Great Shaw. Come help. Although they also believe in gods, their beliefs are different from ours, so it can only be counted as cooperation. What is the content of the cooperation? What the hell are you asking, right? Mingji Apostle was speechless. Of course it is to eradicate Daxia and the Night Watchman. Oh, I see. Then when shall we act? The voice asked again. Ask me, are you really annoying? The Mingji Apostle finally couldn't hold back his inner anger. You 3 are dead, how can a great god have such stupid things like you? The Mingji Apostle was furious. He turned around, only to find that the other 3 apostles who had been standing behind him had all disappeared. Huh, where are people? The Mingji Apostle was stunned, turned his head and looked at the 2 members of the Tarot organization. Where are they? Didn't they be called away by another companion of yours? What the hell? The task is not done yet. Besides, there are only 4 of them, where will the 5th companion come from? Just thinking about it. Suddenly, a young man appeared in front of him with a smile all over his face. You guys want to destroy Daxia in front of my face. Isn't that impolite? You, who are you? The crooked apostle looked at the young man in front of him, his head hooded and frightened. He looked at the empty mountain stream in front of him and shouted in horror. Where are they? You mean them? Lin Tian looked back disapprovingly. It's all in the ravine over there. He touched his chin, thought for a while, and then added, it should be, it's all over. What? When the crooked apostle heard this, his aura suddenly erupted. Who are you? The doorman. Lin Tian's smile was innocent and bright. I won't tell you about those tarots. There is a guard standing at the door who has experienced life. He is not even a level 1. Oh, right, you're going to kill me by the way. Suddenly, 2 silver figures turned into 2 bolts of lightning in the air. The pure silver knight's spear made of special materials came through the sky. The man and woman from the Tarot organization had gloomy expressions. In just an instant, he rushed behind Lin Tian, intending to give the opponent a fatal blow. At the same time, the crooked apostle's whole body began to swell, and except for the hood and the half-remaining overalls, all other clothing was stretched by the surge of muscles. This ability to awaken, almost as good as the Hulk. Faced with this situation, Lin Tian's reaction was surprisingly calm. He glanced at the 2 outsiders beside him indifferently, then slowly raised his right hand, and then placed it lightly on the crooked apostle's shoulder. Since you want to die so much, then I'll let you die. The opponent's voice was sharp, his body muscles contracted violently, and then he tried to use the force to jump up from the ground. However, the next moment, when the crook apostle burst out with all his strength, he wanted to jump up from the ground. But the result, not moving at all. Even though the ground was trampled into 2 deep grooves, the figure of the crooked apostle was still pressed down by Lin Tian's palm that seemed to use no strength at all. As for the 2 outsiders dressed like knights, the moment 2 knight spears came into contact with Lin Tian, A series of sharp sword intents suddenly burst out from the whole body, instantly cutting these two strong spears into silver dust. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, the Apostle Mingji was completely dumbfounded. You call this a doorman? He was able to quietly deal with 3 apostles of God with 5th level strength without him noticing. Are you here to experience life? The guard may not be as powerful as a first order awakened person. He swallowed, and the desire in his heart to follow God forced him to struggle again. The Mingji apostle roared inwardly. Be a loyal apostle under the seat of the gods. How could it be possible to fall down here? He wants to live. He also wants to witness the new world with the gods. Crow, explode your power. Ah, the muscles in crooked apostle's body suddenly swelled. You think you can kill, die, me. Boom, a huge noise echoed in the valley. Crook apostle, die. As for the cause of death, does it count if he crushed himself to death? Lin Tian quickly took his hand back and looked at the 2 outsiders behind him who were locked by his sword intent. You guys are watching. I didn't use too much force. He had to imitate the Hulk's explosive energy, and he was crushed to death in the end. After he finished speaking, he looked at the feet of the dead crow again. The entire valley was trampled into cracks by this huge force. Hiss, can't help but sigh. The love brain is terrible. People in Daxia must have this spirit. Still afraid of the abyss and the gods. The hoods can be blown off by them. After saying that, Lin Tian finally focused on these 2 strangely dressed outsiders. Your organization is called Tarot. Silence. A man and a woman looked at each other and finally agreed. Close your eyes and ignore it. Isn't what the 2 of you just said very slippery? Seeing that the other party didn't speak, Lin Tian asked again. Still no response. Fine. He shook his head regretfully, thinking to get something out of these 2 bastards. But let's see now. It is estimated that it is unlikely. As long as the brain is connected with the gods, it is not normal. As long as the other party chooses not to tell at the beginning, even if you pry his head open later, it is impossible to say any useful information. Since this is the case, there is no need to keep you. Lin Tian murmured. He slowly took down the wooden sword from behind. That's just right, let's use you to try the sword I just learned. The words fell. The sword intent used to imprison the 2 opponents disappeared in a flash. At the same time, without the slightest hesitation, the other party took off all the silver armor on his body, intending to escape from here. But Lin Tian didn't intend to give them this chance. The endless stream of sword intent condensed into tens of thousands of long swords in the air. He squeezed it with one hand, centered on the wooden sword. The 10,000 long swords began to swing at him like a surging river. It smells like that. Lin Tian looked at the 100-meter-long giant sword in his hand. Although he was not as powerful as the young man in his mind, he had some resemblance. Thousands of swords returned to one. The long sword cut out from the mountain stream. The 2 Tarot members who were frantically fleeing only felt that there was a flood-like power behind them, rushing towards them. Boom! Huge momentum. The 1,000-meter-high mountains began to collapse at this moment, and dust and smoke covered half of the sky. Youth training camp. I was really sorry just now. I was a little impatient and neglected the health of this group of students. Officer Zhang sat under a gazebo and took a sip of the herbal tea in his hand. Fine. Chong Haoqiang pursed his lips. When danger comes, we will always stand in front of these little guys. We are getting older, they are the future hope of Daxia. If this group of little guys can grow up smoothly, even if we have to sacrifice our lives for it, I'm willing. As he spoke, he drank the herbal tea in one gulp. Hey, you. Officer Zhang looked at the herbal tea that had been drank in one gulp, hesitantly said, you're right. Exhausted all my life's learning, just to contribute my talents to Great Shah. At this time, Lu Jiwei walked over from not far away like an idler. Herbal tea, and no, give me a sip. Just finished drinking. Lu Jiwei. He coughed twice in embarrassment, just about to speak. Sudden, a loud bang like a bell came from a distance. Without the slightest hesitation, the 3 became vigilant in an instant. What's the situation? Chong Haoqiang immediately stood up and rushed out of the gazebo. But the whole person just stayed in place dumbfounded. Eloquent light shines down from the east. The entire youth training camp Black Prison could not help but light up at this moment. What's wrong? Lu Jiwei and Chi Kuyuan also came out of the pavilion at this moment. Can't help it. Other persons in charge, including instructors and coaches, walked out of the building. Without exception, all of them froze in place with astonished eyes. Is it hallucination? The mountain, why is it gone? What's going on? Chong Haoqiang rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Lao Zhong, daughter, you sure the thing in the pot just now was herbal tea? Right, nonsense, drinking is not allowed in the youth training camp. Officer Zhong said speechlessly, but he was also shocked by the scene in front of him. It's not like you haven't been beaten before. Who made this rule? You don't know what? Quote. Right, Chong Haoqiang nodded. So how should this be explained? What about the beautiful mountains? It was fine 2 minutes ago. It takes less than a blink of an eye. Not half. Isn't this nonsense? Lu Jiwei looked at the smooth-cut surface and the smoke and dust billowing in the sky, and pondered for a long time. Suddenly a candidate appeared in my mind. Is it Lin Tian? He spoke blankly. If it's really the other party, it seems much more reasonable. Maybe someone was practicing swordplay there and accidentally cut down half of the mountain. It's quite normal. You mean, Speaker Wang? Chong Hao swallowed hard. Before, I only heard about the other party's deeds of killing gods. If the mountain in front of me was really killed by the other party's sword. Sure enough, he is a sword master who has never been seen in thousands of years. Hundreds of times more terrifying than what he has heard. He sighed. Lu Jiwei did not speak, but nodded to express his acquiescence. The same goes for other instructors. Feeling the sunshine shining down, I was so surprised that I couldn't speak for a while. A few minutes later, Lin Tian's figure slowly fell from a distance. He was also carrying several corpses in his hands. They are the 2 men and women from the Tarot organization, and the 3 apostles of the divine religion, dog, monkey and cow. As for where the crooking apostle went, Lin Tian expressed regret for this. Who asked him to crush himself to death without even leaving a whole body? Lu Jiwei looked at Lin Tian falling from the sky, and noticed several corpses in the other person's hands, and suddenly understood. He waved his hand and signaled the instructors and other persons in charge present to disperse. You guys go back first, I'll have a conversation with Mr. Lin. There is no empty space. Lin Tian threw the 5 corpses to the ground. We just eliminated a few ants with evil intentions outside. Already no. Lu Jiwei looked at the 3 apostles lying on the ground and 2 other strangely dressed foreigners with a slight embarrassment. Just that movement just now. Apart from the students in the actual combat warehouse who don't know, who else can't notice it? It's so outrageous. These apostles are all 5th level awakened ones who give the Night Watch division a headache. I didn't expect to let Lin Tian take care of it alone. And by the way, I came up with a 3 and 2. After feeling the opponent's true strength at close range, Lu Jiwei took a deep breath. Actually, it's 4 with 2. Lin Tian scratched the back of his head, wondering, that one was a chicken apostle. He insisted on competing with me, but he crushed himself to death. Lu Jiwei, he knew who the chicken Lin Tian was talking about was. He had played against each other in previous years. Wearing overalls, his bulging muscles can reach a height of 2 to 3 meters. One punch almost sent him flying 40 meters. After so many years, he should be at level 5. The strength will probably increase exponentially. What is Lin Tian talking about? Comparing strength with him would kill me in the end. It's absolutely terrible. You have such strength at the age of 18, but you can't penetrate the universe at the age of 19. That's right. Lin Tian ignored the apostles of the divine sect and focused on the other 2 outsiders, Lu Fu. Have you ever heard of the Tarot organization? After hearing these 2 words, Lu Jiwei's expression condensed, and then he looked at the 2 corpses with Lin Tian's eyes. If it is like this, even if Lin Tian didn't tell the whole story, he knew what was going on. Those guys outside Daxia finally reached in. He showed a troubled expression, took out his mobile phone and made a series of calls. Wait for the other party to connect. Without waiting for the other side to speak, Lu Jiwei spoke first. The people who asked you to increase the number of people today, those crazy people outside Daxia also came to join in the fun. The other end of the phone hesitated for 2 seconds, without asking the reason, and replied in a deep voice, I know. If you know it, go quickly. 2 knights have been killed here, and they may have sneaked in from other places. Lu Jiwei continued without any ink. Hurry up and don't be stingy with forbidden items such as barriers. Put whatever you can get at each border pass. The outside has fallen. Why don't they come to Huahuo Daxia? They are really a bunch of lunatics. After saying this, Lu Jiwei hung up the phone directly. There was probably silence for 2 or 3 seconds. He looked at Lin Tian and continued, of course I've heard of the Tarot organization. It's the same as the divine religion, just treat them all as lackeys of the gods. These people also want to revive the gods. Lin Tian was surprised for a moment, and then asked. No, Lu Jiwei shook his head and explained. If the current blue star has been almost corroded by the abyss plane, then Daxia. It's one of the few remaining pure lands. He twisted his neck and motioned Lin Tian to sit down in the pavilion. Outside of Daxia, there are many organizations that are followers of gods like Tarot, but the purpose of this group of people is not the same as that of the gods. They don't seek to resurrect the gods, and then enter that bullshit new world with the gods. These outsiders are simply following the orders of the gods and have no purpose. Hearing this, Lin Tian frowned. Why? Because the gods saved their lives. Lu Jiwei grinned. The reason is very simple. The gods saved their lives. How can this be? Lin Tian recalled the look in Sotoxin's eyes when he first came into the world. Are those the only things that can do this? Lu Jiwei nodded. The news I have received over the past few years is indeed true. After the abyss plane invaded Blue Star, the area except Daxia was quickly invaded by alien species. However, the gods from the cosmic sky suddenly appeared and wiped out all the alien species. From then on, that group of people began to believe in gods as lords, and everything, whether right or wrong, was like a controlled machine. Lu Jiwei shook his head. To be precise, it was the new god who saved them. And those beasts of the divine religion have been following the ancient gods who have not yet awakened. According to the current situation, Lu Jiwei paused, his face showing a trace of fatigue. Big Sha is really under the enemy now. Now we must not only be wary of the new gods who have not yet come to Daxia, but also those organizations outside of Daxia that have been controlled by the new gods. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the pillar of the gazebo. Those new gods are determined to destroy Daxia. Lin Tian didn't speak. He didn't ask why, because this kind of thing has long been obvious. Let's not talk about why these gods hate the alien species in the abyss of disaster just like they do. Light, an organization called Tarot, cooperates with the divine religion. If it is said that people like Tarot obey the gods, the reason for doing so is actually very easy to guess. The purpose of those new gods who descended outside the Great Sha was actually to revive the ancient gods buried underground in the Great Sha. This is also why those new gods would slaughter the alien species, and then after brainwashing those followers, they all aimed at Daxia. Too tricky. Lu Jiwei sighed, and exhaled wisps of white smoke. Big Sha is not only suffering from foreign enemies, but also has some internal difficulties. What difficulty? Lin Tian sat opposite and asked. It's nothing. Lu Jiwei smiled weakly. It's too early to draw conclusions about those things. Chairman Wang will tell you when the youth training camp is over. After all, I still believe it. All right. Seeing that the other party didn't say anything, Lin Tian didn't ask any further. He glanced at the mountain that he had slashed flat with his sword, and said, Responsible Lu, in the youth training camp, are all the people selected by the night watchman. Here. Lu Jiwei's eyes changed. Mr. Lin, you want to say? Yes. Lin Tian nodded. Lu Jiwei seemed to know what he was worried about, and without waiting for him to speak, he continued to add, the instructor can rest assured. I can assure you, including all the persons in charge and staff present. Those who are allowed to enter the youth training camp are all screened by Chairman Wang and the Director General, and there will be no spies. As he spoke, he suddenly noticed that Lin Tian's eyes seemed to be looking at him. Even if the divine cult has the means, it is impossible to sneak into the management of the Night Watch Division. With Chairman Wang and other night watchmen present, they will be discovered within half a day. After finishing speaking, he took out the ID card that had initially identified himself to Lin Tian. There are 5 big characters written on the top of the headquarters, Special Team Leader. In the end, the Director General was specially marked with 2 small red characters. Seeing this, the worries in Lin Tian's heart gradually faded away. Uncle Wang sits in the night watch department. All kinds of identity-checking instruments, can't wait to put a few on each floor. Can have a management position in the head office. Identity can't be wrong. Trust Uncle Wang. Trust the night watchman. The timing of the appearance of these apostles of God is very coincidental. They happened to come within an hour after those students entered the actual combat cabin. If it wasn't for other people to disclose information about this matter, I wouldn't believe anything else anyway. Lin Tian continued. Since the instructors and the people in charge are all right, then this mouse can only appear among the students. Among the students, Lu Jiwei pondered for a moment. This possibility is more likely, because the uncertain factors of the students are much greater than those of our leaders and instructors. Right, have to admit, although the students were also inspected layer by layer, these students were only the night watchmen of the branch before. It can't be ruled out that the gods have placed undercover agents in the night watchmen since they were young. The possibility is small, but definitely not impossible. Stand still, or lead the snake out of its hole. Lu Jiwei asked again. These are too troublesome. Lin Tian waved his hand. Let's just be reckless, and I'm not afraid to startle the snake. Not afraid. Lu Jiwei froze for a moment. Because of me. Lu Jiwei. Putting these words on others may only highlight the words, brainless and reckless. But this is what Lin Tian said. Suddenly it made sense. Now I don't know the identity of the other party. It's better to be pushed by it. I really want to run away. Lin Tian stretched his arms. He can't escape. Confidence. Is this the taste of confidence? It's great to have a boss who can kill gods in charge. To catch undercover agents in other places, it is necessary not only to collect evidence, but also to set up a plan and layer upon layer of layout. In the end, you may have to sacrifice some teammates to successfully catch them. It's different now that there are big bosses around. The main thing is to do whatever you want. It's not that I don't want to use my brain. As long as the strength reaches the standard, all problems can be flattened. It's fine to say whatever you want. Throw these corpses out for the students to have a look at, and then say a few harsh words. Lin Tian smacked his lips. It's best to run when you're stressed. It doesn't matter if you don't get aroused. After these few months, everyone will be thrown into the prison at the headquarters. Student, you are still weird. What if the other party doesn't take the bait? Continue to find someone. Lu Jiwei asked again. Chop it up. Lin Tian said lightly. Zhengqiu couldn't find them, it's just in time for them to come, and they're all chopped up. Lu Jiwei. Since there are big guys around, I feel that the thinking of doing things has become easier. The strongest apostle of the divine religion is no more than the 6th rank at best. Think carefully. So what? The difficult point now is that the other party is in the dark and they are in the light. It's not a question of whether you can beat or not. Those guys want to wipe out the new generation of night watchmen when these students enter the actual combat warehouse. Lin Tian leaned on the chair. That's a good idea. I talked to myself for a while. Immediately, he stood up from the chair. Just do as I tell you. 7 hours later, Mock Hall. Member Chi was not too surprised when he saw the record on the screen that no one had cleared the level. It is normal to fail. He adjusted the microphone, and after briefly reminding all the students to suspend training, he pressed the main button to exit. Click. Nearly 100 combat chambers were opened at the same time. Consciousness returns. All the students took off their helmets and walked out of the cabin with dejected faces. Why is this task of guarding the city so difficult? A student shouted in frustration. Who said it wasn't? Those who didn't know thought I was fighting the giant city over there, and the calamity aliens came out wave after wave. Never passed tier 3, let alone tier 1 or tier 2. Let's go out first. Hiss, the sun is a bit dazzling today. What's dazzling? What are you talking about? Huh, damn. Why is the F-King mountain gone? In the virtual hall, Song Lei, with a bruised nose and swollen face, walked out of the combat cabin. Damn, just a little bit. Originally, only 3 more waves of calamity heterogeneous missions could be barely completed. It turned out well. Suddenly 6 sea-level aliens appeared on his face. I couldn't help but give him a second by sticking to my face. Some fight. Why were you so far away just now? There is no one around, so it's strange if you don't die. Yi Xiaoyuan walked over from the side and added angrily. Can this be my fault? Song Lei frowned. They're all fake matches, right? Isn't it a third-tier group? After the whole mission, I thought it was just one person. Never mind. Yi Xiaoyuan rubbed her temples. 8 hours of training in the warehouse is very mentally exhausting for everyone. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I am not in good shape today, and tomorrow I will take you to fight. Just you weak chicken, Song Lei sneered, it's not sure who will take who. The two said, and walked out of the virtual hall together. Outside the door, dozens of students stood in place with expressions of enjoyment. What is this for? Song Lei scratched his head, puzzled. No way. Yi Xiaoyuan was also puzzled. Why is it so bright outside? Have you installed street lights? Maybe, the two said, and walked out of the building. Follow the gaze of other students. Yi Xiaoyuan immediately understood. Let me just say, how could Sealy be so kind as to install street lights for us? Sid was lost by the mountain. I see. Song Lei nodded thoughtfully. I thought it was a street lamp. What? The mountain is gone. Could it be that I misunderstood it? He rubbed his eyes and realized it wasn't a hallucination. Ahem. At this time, Chong Haoqiang came from not far away. I watched the replay of your training this time. He sighed, and a look of disappointment flashed in the corner of his eyes. It's just too bad. This training task is very difficult. Although I don't expect you to pass it within 8 hours, I never thought that the process would be so bad. Water paddling, lone wolf, and even lazy ones. Chong Hao shouted angrily, pointed at Song Lei and said, do you think you are strong? No matter how much you kill alone. Are you invincible? If there is no invincibility, just cooperate with the team honestly. Hearing instructor Chong scolding Song Lei, Yi Xiaoyuan couldn't help snickering. And you, Yi Xiaoyuan, laughter suddenly, don't think I didn't see you. This training task is very simple. Do you think you are awesome? Do you think you are the Lin Tian who kills God? When the team is defending the city, what are you doing? He took a deep breath. I kept saying to protect Daxia, to protect the only remaining fire on the blue star. Is this the attitude now? Do you all have this attitude? When the students heard this, they lowered their heads silently. If you continue like this, maybe you really don't have the qualifications to be night watchman, so go back and rest. Chong Hao shook his head strongly and stopped talking. I've said everything I need to say, let Lu take care of the rest. A few minutes later, Lu Jiwei walked up to the practitioners with 3 dead bodies. Kill the 4 apostles of the god cult, there should be 6, and the 3 can't find the whole body. Regarding tarot, Lu Jiwei did not intend to disclose it to these students. He threw the body on the ground with a very calm tone. I'll tell you if there's nothing wrong, don't take it to heart. Really, I just want you to take a look, there is no other meaning, don't think too much, I don't do anything. The students looked at each other in blank dismay. What are you doing now? This is an apostle, let alone killing so many in one breath, how come there is no reaction at all? Could it be that Lu is in charge so strong? 3 days later, the bedtime will be closed at 7 o'clock in the evening. I hope all the students will return to the dormitory on time. Don't worry, don't think about it, we don't arrest people. Lu Jiwei smiled hypocritically, and after hanging the 3 corpses on the iron net, he left without looking back. Only a group of bewildered students remained. Song Lei clenched his fists tightly. Tomorrow, if you risk your life, you have to pass this training. Master originally wanted to test your strength. It seems that without my master, this task would be impossible. Yi Xiaoyuan grinned, then let you see what is the most important thing for the younger generation. Strong night watchman. The students discussed in low voices. There was only one person who glanced vaguely at the 3 corpses on the iron fence, then walked silently towards the dormitory. Wait for all the students to disperse. Lin Tian, who had been staying in the guard room swinging his sword, walked out from the door at this moment. In the virtual hall, Chong Haoqiang and Chi Ke are watching the replay of the trainee training. Song Lei, Yi Xiaoyuan's problem is the biggest here. Officer Qi nodded, indeed. The former is still too confident in his own strength and doesn't trust his teammates. The latter, seems to always want to show off and attract others' attention. Although paddling, every shot is at an important moment, either to save the students who are almost killed, or to harvest some the key calamity variant. The two watched the fighting process of all the students over and over again. Try to find everyone's problems and vulnerabilities in it. You two. Are you busy? At this time, Lin Tian walked in from outside the building alone. He stroked his chin, looked at the actual combat warehouse in front of him, and kept suppressing the eager thoughts in his heart. What's the matter? Chong Haoqiang noticed Lin Tian who walked in. It's nothing. Lin Tian walked to the actual combat cabin as if nothing had happened. I'm going for a stroll. Chong Haoqiang. He was silent for a while, then suddenly thought of something, and said to Lin Tian, "Oh right, the scene made this time still lacks a customs clearance data." Indeed, Member Chi echoed, "I'd forget if you didn't tell me. With the customs clearance data, it is convenient to study the loopholes." Lin Tian coughed twice. This. Mr. Lin, this matter. Okay, leave it to me." The other party was only halfway through speaking, and Lin Tian rushed to answer directly. Chong Haoqiang, did I say what to do? Cooperating with your kid is very purposeful. Being a guard, I don't really contribute too much except cutting down a few apostles of God. Lin Tian said to himself, is that how I sat in? Chong Haoqiang, when did he go in? Why didn't I notice it myself? Mr. Lin's help can just help us provide combat data. Chi Ke continued in the narration. Basically, there is no major problem with wearing it. Once the warehouse door is closed here, your consciousness will automatically enter the virtual scene. In the combat warehouse, Lin Tian swallowed. This stuff. He has long wanted to try. I just don't know if there is an exit key. The warehouse door is closed. Lin Tian only felt that his whole body suddenly became unreal, and the data code flashed before his eyes. Next second, when he opened his eyes again, he was already in a city. The pedestrians around are in a hurry, no different from the present world. Lin Tian looked to the side, and then lowered his head to feel his current self. Although only conscious, but it feels very real. At this time, a reminder suddenly appeared in front of Lin Tian's eyes. Open black lens bracket place. Linjiang City close black lens bracket. Training content. This is a city that is about to be invaded by alien disasters. When the mission starts, cracks in the abyss of disaster will appear around the city. Close black lens bracket. Completion requirements. Protect the city and prevent it from causing harm to citizens. Humanization. Calamity variants will simulate a suitable level according to the strength of the trainer. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Do you want to start? Close black lens bracket. Lin Tian took a look at the general requirements for this training mission. To put it simply, it is actually similar to the Samsung evaluation of some computer games. 3-star customs clearance is to successfully resist all disasters and aliens, and prevent them from causing harm to the city and citizens. In the case of 2 stars, one of the city and citizens failed to protect it, but finally passed the level. As for 1 star, that is the simplest. It only needs to successfully resist the disaster alien species. After understanding almost, Lin Tian came to the edge of the city, and pressed the training start button without a moment's hesitation. Roar! It is at this very moment. The originally cloudless sky suddenly dimmed. The continuous fire ignited the sky from a distance, creating a scene of doomsday. In front of you, 5 abyss cracks tens of meters high appeared without any warning. In an instant, dozens of ferocious calamity alien species roared out of it. They were huge in size, all of them were covered with black and blue hard shells, and on their faces covered with spikes, their crazy eyes stared at Lin Tian in front of them. In the virtual hall, Chong Haoqiang and the two watched the real-time playback of Lin Tian's training scene intently. When they saw the alien species rushing out of the crack in the abyss, they were all shocked. A-level heterogeneous. Chong Haoqiang stared blankly at the picture in front of him. There are so many alien species, the weakest ones are all A-level alien species. The ones here are all intelligently adjusted according to the strength of the trainer. The first wave is already A-level, so what about the last wave? Member Chi looked at Lin Tian on the screen, as if watching a monster. An 18-year-old boy can have such a strong strength. It's hard not to doubt. Did the other party hang up? Why is there such a big gap between people? Comma. In the combat warehouse, Lin Tian didn't show the slightest panic in his eyes facing these nearly 100 calamity mutants. Ever since he'd seen that black moth, this level of heterogeneity can hardly cause him any burden. It takes a sword to cut one. Cut 100. It also only needs one sword. Lin Tian slowly removed the wooden sword placed behind his back, but a thought suddenly popped up in his mind. Everything here is perfectly reproduced according to reality. Since this is the case, if he wants to complete the training content, he doesn't necessarily have to resist all the calamity aliens. Lin Tian raised his sword. His eyes were not on the alien species, but on the crack behind them. He had thought about it before. However, the strength is not enough. But now, you can give it a try. Facing the alien species that was already pounced on him, Lin Tian didn't dodge or dodge, he just flicked his left hand lightly. The alien species that was several meters long was thrown out and hit the ground heavily. He held out his long sword. The silver-white sword shadow formed a silver moon in the sky. The swordsmanship of time. The long river of time slanted down from the sky like a waterfall. The nearly 1,000-meter sword intent turned everything around into a gloomy gray. Under this sword intent, hundreds of aliens seemed to be frozen. Silently, dissipated into ashes. The first wave of alien species was all wiped out, but Lin Tian's sword didn't intend to stop at all. His goal, from beginning to end, there are only those few cracks at the end. Wherever this sword passes, everything is washed away by time. A large area of trees ages at a speed visible to the naked eye, and eventually turns into a wisp of dust in the world. In the hall, both of them were shocked by this sword. What the hell? You call this 18 years old? When he first heard that the other party teamed up with Senior Who to kill the gods, he had imagined the scene of the other party as a young boy cutting the gods with swords. All kinds of fantasies are far less deterrent than the sword brought him. Do you think Lin Tian is possessed by an old monster that has lived for hundreds of years? Officer Chi K took a deep breath. I was 18 years old and I was still surfing the internet over the wall, and people have already killed gods with swords. It was better just to listen before. See it with your own eyes now. Grandma's, it brought out his inferiority complex. When the two were talking, they didn't notice the content on the screen at all. A few seconds passed. When they looked at the screen again, the 4 big characters of the completion of the above task once again severely traumatized their weak hearts. What the hell? What just happened? I didn't look at the screen for less than a few seconds. Why did you pass the level? Chong Haoqiang looked at the 4 characters in disbelief, reached out and patted Chike, who also didn't know what to do. Why are you standing there? Play it back. What? Ah. Member Chike nodded again and again, and quickly picked out the replay just now. I see. In the screen, the sword that Lin Tian slashed did not dissipate after annihilating the first wave of alien species, but went straight to the crack. After contacting it, the sword intent distorted the space in just an instant. The black slag fragments began to disintegrate and fall off under the ravages of the sword intent. In less than a blink of an eye, the cracks forcibly opened by the calamity abyss collapsed. Then, mission accomplished. In the virtual hall, it was extremely silent. Can it still be accomplished like this? Can you believe that the crack was directly cut away with one sword? Click. The actual combat warehouse is open. After clearing the customs, Lin Tian walked out of it with some unfinished thoughts. How is the record? Lin Tian looked at the 2 people who were stunned and asked, is it very detailed? Chong Haoqiang, member Chi K, speechless. This is really detailed. To be honest, they can disclose this kind of confidential information directly. I'm not afraid of others seeing it at all. To be honest. Did you find it useful? First this, then that, and finally it was solved. Is it very detailed? Is not it simple? It's so simple that no more than 5 people in the entire Daxia Night Patrol Division can do it using this method. In the hall, looking at Lin Tian's leaving figure, the 2 of them couldn't calm down for a long time. Dozens of students formed a team, but they still haven't cleared the level after 8 hours. And Lin Tian, task completion time, from start to finish. The total time taken is 7 seconds. The next day. I'm going to show off my power this time, and I will definitely take you through within 5 hours. On the way to the building, Yi Xiaoyuan vowed. Just you. Stop talking nonsense. Just paddle next to me and let me take care of you. Song Lei joked from the side. After what Chong Haoqiang said yesterday, it was not just the two of them. Almost everyone was ignited with a competitive heart. We will go in and cooperate with each other later. We must not be careless and cooperate with each other. Although the difficulty of the second level group is not as high as that of the third level group, we cannot take it lightly. Don't worry, my assistance this time will definitely not hold you back. We can't fall even one step below. Everyone's momentum was high along the way. I got familiar with the training content for about 8 hours yesterday. Although the difficulty is high, as long as they cooperate well, it is not impossible to complete it. In the virtual hall, Chong Haoqiang and Chi Qiyu have been waiting for a long time. Just met. Yi Xiaoyuan couldn't wait to ask Instructor Chong. Instructor Chong, are there any records of this training content? Record. Complete the record, he continued, immediately assuming a confident posture. If there is no record, then today he will lead the third level team to set an unprecedented record. Just set a small goal. Based on yesterday's difficulty, complete the training within 3 hours. Yi Xiaoyuan said to himself. 3 hours to complete the training, he was sure. This result can definitely shock the Night Watch department. Are you leading the team? I can complete it within 2 hours if I lead the team. Song Lei scratched his yellow hair. Then I'll give you an hour. I have 40 minutes. Chong Haoqiang looked at the two people and stretched out his hand to signal the other person to be quiet. Stop arguing, actually, this is recorded. Is there a record? Is there a record? The two men stopped immediately and turned to look at Chong Haoqiang. Seeing the slightly embarrassed expression on the other party's face, Yi Xiaoyuan asked tentatively, with this training content, 40 minutes can definitely break the record. Third level group task content. There are a total of 18 waves of disasters and alien species, if they can be completed within 40 minutes. The difficulty can be imagined. Chong Haoqiang listened to the two people's questions and shook his head silently. No, Yi Xiaoyuan touched it, 30 minutes. Continue to shake your head. 20 minutes. Can anyone really complete it in such a short time? Even if a 6th level awakener came in person, it would be impossible to complete it in such a short time. After all, the difficulty inside is determined based on the trainer's own strength. There is no such thing as being able to push forward at the speed of light as long as you are strong. What is the concept of 20 minutes? Clean up a wave of alien species in 1 minute. Chong Haoqiang continued to shake his head. Don't ask. I think it's better for you not to know this question. What's the big deal? Song Lei waved his hands as if it didn't matter when he heard this. How could our confidence be shaken simply because of a result? You're looking down on us too much. Just curious. The two looked at each other and nodded. At this time, other students also heard the news and came together. They are all people who have experienced it. Know how difficult this training content is. Maybe listening to it can arouse the competitive spirit in their hearts. Chong Haoqiang looked at the students who came up to him. Then what have I said? I want to see how long it takes. It can't be completed in 5 minutes. Yi Xiaoyuan looked like he didn't believe in evil. It's impossible to complete this training in 5 minutes, unless you bring it to Fengling Yueying. 7 seconds. All students. That afternoon. It took 3 hours for the third level group to complete the training content with difficulty, and the final evaluation was 2 stars. The next day, the first level and second level groups followed closely, both lasting more than 3.5 hours. Like the third level group, the final evaluation was 2 stars. Third day. Today is also the day when Lu Jiwei said he would go to bed early at 7 o'clock. The students' performance these 2 days has been relatively normal. In addition to training every day, it is to polish one's own strength in the actual combat warehouse. Except for a couple of nights when he took her out alone for a massage. Who exactly? I understand everything. As for the others, Lin Tian didn't see which student's behavior was abnormal. Same as ever. Lin Tian swung his sword in an empty space behind the guard room. Swing the sword once, get a reward, a wisp of sword soul. Close black lens bracket. Swing the sword once, get a reward, a wisp of sword soul. Close black lens bracket. Currently, the sword has been swung 38,624 times in total. Close black lens bracket. Only less than 2,000 times, and then you can get the reward given by the system. Such progress is not too slow. Even faster than before. Time passed by every minute and every second. The sky darkened unknowingly. Lin Tian stayed in his guard room, with a premonition in his heart. The undercover agent hiding among the students today will definitely make a move. 7 o'clock in the evening. All the students returned to the dormitory on time, and no one stayed. There were no abnormalities during this period. 8 o'clock at night. The chirping of cicadas was particularly noisy in this silent environment. The breeze blows. Lin Tian was waiting patiently in the guard room with the air conditioner on. 9 o'clock at night. Still nothing wrong happened. 10 o'clock at midnight. The lights in the dormitory began to go out one by one, and the youth training camp began to fall into darkness. 12 midnight. The last lit room in the dormitory went dark. Through the glass, Lin Tian stared at every move happening in front of him. The mouse is about to move. 10 minutes later. The roof of the dormitory. A thin figure appeared above. He was lurking in the dark, and the other hand unknowingly crushed the phone into pieces. These night watchmen are really crazy. For this plan to sneak into the youth training camp. As early as a year ago, he had already prepared for this. I didn't expect those apostles to be so useless and killed so easily. It also exposed his identity. This bunch of idiots. Sui Ying cursed secretly in his heart. Recall what Lu Jiwei said to you in front of all of them 3 days ago. It's not that he wants to take the conspiracy to the surface. On the surface, he looked like he had a winning ticket, saying that he would be locked up in 3 days. The purpose was not to make him think that the night watchmen were actually putting on airs, but they had no idea who the spy was. But if he really thought so, big mistake. In fact, they already knew it. The reason why he hasn't done anything is probably because he wants to monitor him and get useful information through observation. And the sleeping after 3 days is just a smoke bomb. Want to spy on him? Then make the first move yourself. Stupid night watchman, pay the price for your greed. Sombra smirked inwardly. The most dangerous place is the safest. After turning around several times, he finally came to a distance less than 6 meters away from the gate. Other fences that are unguarded are likely to have some kind of contraband installed for surveillance. But the door is different. There is only one ordinary doorman who comes to experience life. Just take advantage of this and escape from here smoothly. Gia, I'm so smart. At this time, a voice sounded behind him. Well, you stepped on my foot. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.